We're back for another Caravan of Garbage, the show where we look at things and go like, hey, what do you think of this? What do we think of this? And then people yell at us about our opinions, whether they be good or bad.
Oftentimes they say, why is this movie in Caravan of Garbage? It's not garbage. And we say to them, it's just the title of the video series.
We didn't think it through that much.
Didn't think it that hard. Anyway.
Leave a like if you could.
Yeah, this week
a comment.
This week we're talking about Man of Steel. Well, look, we're covering the complete oeuvre of Zack Snyder, except not Dawn of the Dead and not that Owls movie.
No, not
just
the Owls
his DC
movie.
stuff.
To open things up, as I think we should, let's just talk about Krypton and what's going on in Krypton. I know it's a nonsense planet that doesn't make any sense.
You sure?
But I love it.
Right.
I love that it's not just crystals and glass and people in white coats going, well, it's happened. I mean, there's a bit of that, but it's weird, dirty rocks and giant dragonflies and gold helmets.
It's got a particular, planned, beautiful aesthetic.
Yes,
a ridiculous aesthetic that makes no sense. As I've maybe perhaps mentioned in previous videos. What do you do on the planet Krypton? Like, if you're not a warrior, you're not a scientist, you're not on a council.
Yeah.
What do you do? Because there's nothing in any of the rooms. There doesn't seem to be anywhere. Can you go to the movies? And if so, do you have to catch a giant dragonfly and fly to the movies?
Is the movies just a giant pin art screen?
Right.
And you're like, who is anybody in this?
I feel maybe there's the unanswered question is that if you go over one of those, endless beautiful mountain ranges, there's just regular suburbs.
Yeah, right.
It's just people going to the mall.
Just apartment buildings.
Going to play mini golf,
The strange thing about the pin art, which is the way you communicate, and you're like, is that my wife? I can't really tell.
Uh-huh.
They also have incredibly lifelike holograms. So it's weird that they would defer to that.
Well, there's a moment in the earlier part of the movie where Jor-El is talking to Lara, his wife,
yes,
and he's seeing her on a pinboard.
Yep.
And she says, Jor-El, look out. So she can see him and all his surroundings, but he can just see the pinboard.
Yeah.
So is she looking at a TV screen?
I don't know. That being said, I love the idea of how they set up this doomed Krypton the way that they often do, where it's just dumb bureaucrats in stupid hats being like, the planet's not dying, religion will live forever, and whatever, and then the planet explodes. It's the dumbest council in the world who then put all the racists and horrible kind of blood-feuding families in dick rockets and fire them to safety.
Look, I have so many questions about the whole thing. First of all, they're like, well, we have precisely 10 devices that
will usher you to safety.
Yeah, that's right. Should we use them? No, let's give them to the criminals. Let's definitely do that. Secondly, Jor-El mentions to Zod at some point during the Krypton sequence that the birth of his and Lara's child is the first natural birth in centuries.
Heresy!
Which, for me, opens this whole big can of worms. It's like, is maybe the reason that everybody on this planet is so angry is nobody's been laid in like 300 years? Is that...
Look, I'd imagine there's still...
Is that why all the stuff looks like dicks? Is this just... I'm asking. I'm asking.
And the thing is, these questions I have about this society and this council and why they do the things they do, bear in mind, this isn't a criticism. I have criticisms, but I'm going to get to them. But they're a dying, doomed civilization and they just do dumb things.
Yeah.
So I'm entirely okay with it. I also like the idea that Jor-El is this guy who he was born as a scientist, he was raised to be a scientist, and he just goes, you know what, I'm going to teach myself Kung Fu.
Right.
And fucking no one sees it coming.
Right.
And when they're just walking him off, they don't think he's just going to be throwing elbows. They've all been raised that way, and he's just tearing through them, because he probably, he took a year off to probably just practice some Kung Fu.
He took a year off and he watched the Dark Knight trilogy is what happened. That's why he's throwing out all those knees and elbows.
I love it though.
Yeah.
I love that idea that in this civilization, you can go beyond yourself if you want to, and it's unusual, and nobody expects it.
You can birth your own child.
Yeah.
He's the only man with a dick on that planet, is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. We don't have any evidence for or against, but I'm just saying, if you didn't have one, maybe you'd be grumpy.
God damn, Michael Shannon is good in this.
Right, good.
He's terrifying, and you believe everything that he's saying. Physically, he looks good. Like, he looks like a guy who could potentially be a foil to a Superman.
Yeah,
And the other thing is, he's got a lot of good ideas that are right, because he's like, the planet's exploding and I want to stop that.
But he cuts his own hair.
But he cuts his own hair. And then, of course, also there's the weird bloodline racist stuff that
that
I
seems
don't
a bit
agree
weird,
with.
isn't it? Yeah.
But I think, like all good villains, they've got a point to an extent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And he's just been pushed that little bit too far because people aren't listening to him.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a point when Zod and Jor-El have their first conversation in that throne room.
Yeah.
And I'm going, Well, they say, why wouldn't they be on the same side? And
Yeah.
then the racism. I see. I get it. I get it now. Right.
Yeah, that's it. I love all the Codex bloodline stuff, and it's all kept in like a ancient Kryptonian monkey skull.
Yeah.
And it's really important. They got to usher it off the planet, and he dives into the pool and he swims through, and the alarm system goes off, and he's in his tight Superman onesie. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
His super drawers, yes.
That's right. And then when he grabs it and he climbs out and he just cracks it
on
on a rock.
That's right.
Clack. That's fine. Don't even worry about it. Just this skull that's millions of years old.
It would have been a much shorter movie if he just did it. Oh, it's a very old skull. I didn't factor that in.
Yeah, that's right.
It's turned to dust now. Here's a tip for you. Jor-El, where's the codex? I threw it in the bin.
I broke it when I climbed out of the pool.
That's right. Then Zod would be like, that's actually pretty plausible. And now that I think it was very fragile. Oh, well, guess our civilization's done.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I like all the Krypton stuff. In summary, and I like that they just didn't defer to the Crystal Chris Reeve stuff, which again, I also like, and they borrow that a lot in the comics, but this is a different Superman. And I think the criticisms that have been leveled at this is that it's not the Chris Reeve version, but it's different, and that's okay. It's a different universe. I don't agree with everything that they've done here, but at least it's not Superman Returns, is what I'm saying.
Exactly, precisely, yes. Yes.
I also like how most of the growing up stuff with Clark is done in flashback.
I had a question about the flashbacks. In
Sure.
fact, it's not a question, James. I'll rephrase. I have a theory about the flashbacks.
Okay.
Because a lot of this is it's modern day Clark Kent, and then it flashes back to an important moment in young Clark's life. In rewatching this, I feel pretty confident in saying that I think they put the flashbacks in the wrong order and nobody noticed until the movie came out, and then it was too late to do anything about it. Because there's a scene in the movie, present day Clark, he's working at like a truck stop diner, and a guy gives him some grief.
Yep.
And then later in the movie, like half an hour later, there's a flashback where young Clark Kent is being like pushed around by some bullies, and the question is, what kind of man are you going to grow up to be, Clark? Are you gonna stand up to bullies? Where do we know? It happened half an hour ago, and we know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to take all the abuse, then he's going to walk outside, and he's going to impale the guy's truck on a bunch of logs, and then he's going to leave.
Do you think that's too far to ruin this man's livelihood potentially? I think he deserved it.
I think he kind of deserved it, but also Clark's like 6'4", right? And this guy was like maybe a foot shorter than him.
Yeah, I love that moment where he shoves him,
And nothing
and
happens.
he's just a wall. He doesn't even
Yeah.
flinch, and the guy's face is just like, what has just happened?
But also, it's a rowdy truck stop bar, and I guess my question is, it wouldn't be out of place if a guy who worked at the bar was like, you're making trouble, stop doing that or I'll throw you out.
Yeah.
Just pick him up and hurl him out the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the boss would be like, good job, Clark.
Yeah.
You know?
That being said, his father puts him on a path in this movie where it's very lucky that he didn't turn out to be the kid from Brightburn.
Oh, yeah.
I just think one of my major problems with this movie is the characterization of Jonathan Kent. And I think he mostly is done right in Smallville, Chris Reeve movies, a lot of the animated stuff, comics. He's done it right a lot of the time because he pushes Clark to better himself. And Clark's like, I want to play sport and, you know, and show people what I can do. And he's like,
Clark Kent's often like, run second. You know?
yeah,
He's like,
exactly. What you want to be a pro athlete. You think that's the extent of your abilities. That's
right,
what you want to do with these amazing gifts that you have. You need to think bigger. You need to think about humanity.
Think about how many logs you can put through a truck,
Yeah,
Clark.
that's right.
How many?
Yeah.
But yeah, this version of Park Kent is very much like, I don't think you should try, Clark. I think you should hide away.
Yeah.
It's so important that you don't bring any attention to you being any different from anybody else. P.S. I took this piece of metal from your spaceship and I brought it to a metallurgist, and he was like, this is a crazy piece of metal. I've never encountered anything like this in my entire life. Anyway, here's the piece of metal back, and I'm never going to mention this ever again.
Yeah, absolutely.
One rule for Park Kent, and it's one rule for Clark, isn't it?
I have a massive problem with the tornado death.
I've written here, the death of Park Kent is the dumbest death in the history of cinema.
I don't know about the dumbest death in
It's
history.
the dumbest death.
The idea also that it's not even the moment where he doesn't rescue him, which he could. Because first of all, nobody is looking at Clark in that moment. Everyone's looking at Park Kent. He could run in, grab him. No one would even see what happened.
Yeah.
The other thing is, before they even get to the underpass, he says to Clark, I'll go back for the dog. Here, carry this kid. I move at regular speed and I can get my foot caught in a car door.
Yeah.
If it happened to you, you'd walk through it like it was tinfoil. All the steps leading up to that make no sense.
Well, they make sense if you consider that scene needed to be dramatic and move the plot forward.
I also think the lesson doesn't work. Look, again, this isn't the Chris Reeve movies.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be. But in those movies, the lesson learnt from Clark Kent's dad is he dies of a heart attack and he realizes that despite all his insane powers, he can't save everybody.
Yeah.
But this is a scenario where he definitely could have saved him.
I think this is intended to be his Spider-Man Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility thing, and he decided not to, and that's a big mistake he made.
Yeah.
But there was no villain here. It was just a
big gust of wind.
Big gust of wind. And yeah, and it's like Pa Kent went in there like, well, it'd be a bit suspicious if you went in there and saved the dog and survived. So me, a much older man with no powers going in, who's definitely going to die. It'll make much more sense if I come out of this alive, which I won't. I'm gonna die. Anyway.
Also, if I could just refer everybody to groundzeroshelters.com. This is in relation to hiding under an underpass with a tornado. Don't do it. I will say this, though, about their relationship, getting back to the Jonathan Kent thing. That moment where they're talking about where he's from, and he just has this real existential crisis of like, oh, not that I'm adopted, I'm not from this planet. And he's just like, I want to just be a regular kid. Why can't I just be your son? And he's like, you are my son. None of that matters. Like, fuck all that. Like, the most important thing is that, you know, I still love you despite all of this. I think that's a terrific moment. Again, the problem with Jonathan Kent isn't the performance or little moments like that. It's the fact that he's a dumb dad who dies in a tornado.
And I think, mate, was that the idea behind, okay, well, Jor-El is like the big man of action.
Sure.
And Pa Kent is the man of just sit calmly in your seat and keep your seatbelt on.
Yes,
I think they needed that contrast to be like, he's got to choose one.
I think that is the idea, but he's too much of a downer. Like, he's dragging him down too much.
Yeah.
You know, I can understand him going...
I'm glad that tornado took him, quite frankly.
It did everybody a favor. Who knows what would have happened? I think Henry Cavill's great in this.
I think so too.
I think he gets less and less to do in these movies after this one. I think he's kind of hard done by in Batman v Superman, which we'll come back to. But I think overall, with the material that he is given, the physicality of the performance, how he looks,
how hairy his chest
is. I love that. That's very Death of Superman. Throwing that back in, I'm okay with it. I think he's terrific. How do you feel about him and the suit, though?
He's got the range as an actor, and he's got the potential to be the Superman that maybe is one that's filled with hope. And filled with, but again,
the one they shoehorn into the end of Justice League.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And again, if you want a grim and gritty Superman, he can do that as well.
Yeah.
And you know, at this point, we didn't know that whether it was going to be a franchise or not.
Yeah.
It was just a kind of standalone. I think they should have put in the underpants.
I think the problem with this suit is, and I generally like it, especially the cape. I think the cape looks great. It's too muted compared to the also muted world. Like, he doesn't pop enough out of it. And I'm not saying don't go garish spandex, but I'm saying wear something that kind of lifts him above the kind of grey tone of a lot of this movie.
And that lifts him above the villains. Because in this movie, there's even a moment where the soldiers are like, the boss is like, open fire, and they're like, even the man in blue? Like, I think they're all wearing blue. I don't know. I'm on a battlefield.
Bluish, greyish?
I don't know what colour anybody is. All right, I'll just keep shooting.
Also, I think Lois Lane is great in this. I think she's probably the best Lois Lane. I know that's kind of heresy.
Yes.
If you look back again at the 70s movies and the other versions that we've got. But I think she does a lot of actual reporting.
She does a lot of screaming.
There's a lot of screaming, but not too much screaming.
She does a lot of being invited to like a military base where they're digging up something and they don't know what it is yet, but they're like, we better bring the media just in case.
Yeah, that's right.
Just in case this is an alien thing, and then we can deny all knowledge of it after showing it to her.
Let's talk about an alien thing.
Okay.
I like the idea of the Fortress of Solitude in this, that it's a crashed scout ship from thousands of years prior. I think that's an interesting take on that, in the sense that you can plug in, you know, like a new Kryptonian key, and all of a sudden it's your ship, it's your Fortress of Solitude.
Yes.
I like that a lot, but they also kind of entirely abandon it in later movies in terms of a place that Superman can go to for refuge.
Yeah, and it was also intended, I think, as well, to be potentially the origin story of Supergirl as well.
Oh, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we see an empty pod there. Yeah.
You know what I also like about this movie?
Yes.
There's not so much kryptonite as there is. He hadn't been recently exposed to the Kryptonian atmosphere, and that is his kryptonite.
Yes.
It's this really heavy environment that he's just not used to.
Yeah, right.
And it's just this crushing weight on him. I think that's a really interesting idea. I also like the physicality of all the Kryptonians in this. The moment where Zod flips that truck like it's a tin can.
Yep.
The fight scene in Smallville is amazing.
I agree, yeah.
It's so good.
And again, you know, there are elements of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies that I like and don't like. There's, you know, some great Superman and Justice League cartoons that have great characterizations of Superman, but I feel like this is the first movie that we really feel the physicality of beings that can
Yeah.
fly, beyond the speed of sound and just crash into buildings and destroy them.
IHOPs
and Sears, R.I.P. And just not feel it.
Yes.
But at the same time,
They can be damaged.
Yes.
Which I think also raises the stakes for everybody and means the army serves an actual purpose there. They might not be greatly impacting what's going on, but they have some play in what is going on in that scenario.
Yeah. At one point, Feora does get hit by a missile and she is at least temporarily knocked out. So
absolutely.
We know, I guess, at least until they achieve their full Superman level powers.
Yeah.
The longer they spend on Earth. But until that time, they are kind of vulnerable. Also, Feora and Christopher Maloney's character, to me, have this weird romantic subplot.
Definitely.
They never say anything, but I feel like Christopher Maloney's character, whose name I cannot recall, nor will I look up because he's always Christopher Maloney in everything to me.
That's all we need.
Beautiful man. Immediately upon seeing her, you see him fall in love.
Yes.
Like, oh my stars. What a beautiful alien lady.
But what I also like about that scene, which doesn't play in the final battle in Metropolis, he's actively saving people and trying to prevent destruction. And look, we will get to it, but that is a major problem for me in this movie. The world engine is not terrible.
Well, I've written here, not only is it not terrible, but it's the perfect superhero movie finale machine because it generates both fire and smoke, and it shoots a blue sky beam.
Yeah, so it does it all.
It's just, hey, you want an environment for a finale? You want some smoke to obscure some bad CGI? You want a laser beam to know that there's some stakes happening? Look, I hope that laser beam doesn't go on too long because otherwise big trouble.
So we're going to talk about the finale. I know people have kind of excused it to death and we've been openly criticised for saying that why does Superman not so much knock down so many buildings, which he does, but also allow this to happen. There's even a moment where they go into space and they drop back straight down, back
into the city.
Go somewhere else, obviously. To be fair, that is addressed at the start of Batman v Superman, which we'll come back to. Like, why is he doing this? It all looks good. The punching is great. It's all very realistic. But the idea that he decides to wipe Krypton out entirely by crashing that ship into so many buildings, killing not only what's left of his planet, but also tens of thousands of people in Metropolis.
To be fair, we never actually see any human deaths.
I believe Zack Snyder made the point of saying it's something like 5,000 people were killed, which is
a lot of deaths confirmed.
It's quite a lot.
How many people did we lose in Metropolis that fateful day?
I mean, probably 5,000 people or something like that.
But then it all comes down to that one moment of a neck snap.
Oh, yes.
And people say that an excuse is that what was he supposed to do in that scenario?
Fly away? Use his super speed to move those people out of the way?
Yeah, sure. All of those things.
Maybe he could stand in front of the heat vision, move really fast.
Well, that's my point. Just write a different scenario.
Yep.
I understand that he wants to save people. It's not the killing Zod that I so much have a problem with, because he does kill occasionally. He'll kill if he has to.
Well, here's the thing as well, is that it also builds up to a moment where he kills Zod and then he's torn up, he's destroyed by it. And again, if you know Superman as a character, you go, well, he probably tries not to kill that many people. But if you don't know Superman, you've just seen 2 hours of a guy just ramming through buildings, and like at one point he like drags a Kryptonian through a city by his face. And it's like, why you tried to kill him like 20 minutes ago. Why are you concerned that you had to kill him now?
Exactly.
Like if you don't know who
you exterminated your race, essentially.
If you didn't know who Superman was, you'd be like, why is he feeling so sad at this last kill? He seemed to be bang up for it a minute ago.
Yeah, it's strange to me. And it's interesting because Christopher Nolan had a big hand in this movie.
Yeah, right.
I don't have proof of this, but I feel like they offered him Man of Steel to direct.
Yeah, right.
He's a producer and he has a writing credit. He didn't like the idea of Superman killing at the end and was kind of talked around to it. But I feel like tonally it doesn't fit with the rest of the movie. Again, it's not the killing, it's the execution of this scenario.
Yeah, execution's right.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And if you've recently seen maybe an Avengers movie or something like that, where the heroes kill people all the time as a matter of course, you'd be like, I guess you got to do that sometimes.
You got to do
it's
it,
fine,
yeah. Anyways, here's a section of the show called We Give You Some Trivia. But also bear in mind we don't mention every bit of trivia. If you do want that, go read a list of trivia, because we're almost certainly not going to mention everything. Like how you see the Bruce Wayne satellite in space. Yes, I saw it.
You see the LexCorp truck. You see a LexCorp truck.
That's right. So, Supergirl, you mentioned that. Now, Zack Snyder has said that the open pod that we see on the Kryptonian ship, that was something more than Supergirl. That being said, there is a prequel comic where
which
it
is
is
definitely
a
Supergirl,
version of.
yeah.
That being said, he almost certainly didn't have a hand in writing that.
That's right.
But I do wonder whether it was going to be the Eradicator. Maybe it was Doomsday at some point.
Yeah, right, You know what? It was a box of potential. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Mystery box.
It's put in a mystery box and be like, what do you think it's going to be, audience?
Also, you know how they all get sucked into the Phantom Zone at the end?
Yes.
He mentioned that Feora maybe survived.
Okay.
And so my question is, did Christopher Maloney end up in the Phantom Zone? Do you think he could come back potentially?
Yes.
I just wanted to do the rhyme.
I loved it.
But do you think he could, though?
I think they did, and I think they're going to come back married. That's how it's going to work.
Yeah. And also, of course, we can't go past mentioning that General Swanwick is Martian Manhunter.
Potentially he is, yeah. Or
so
it's been revealed by Zack Snyder.
It has.
Yeah.
There's some storyboards that led to the idea that he was going to be revealed to be. He was basically protecting Earth the entire time as Martian Manhunter.
It's funny that when Superman was in the interrogation room and he x-rayed everybody, he
Yeah.
didn't notice that General Swanwick was in fact a Martian Manhunter at all.
But the thing is, maybe he did.
Oh.
He's not the kind of guy to be like, guy's an alien.
He did point out that guy's lifesavers though, so, he's up for spilling some secrets, that's all I'm saying.
That's entirely possible, yeah.
Look, I have one more piece of trivia.
I love trivia.
I have one more unearthed note here. It just says, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, Perry White, has a single diamond earring, and I want to know the story behind it. I mean, maybe it's just a fashion statement. Maybe there's something more. I don't know. But
he got divorced. That's what I think happened.
I'd love to. That's it. I'd love to read that prequel comic. Is all I'm saying. So if somebody's making it,
Yeah.
please send me an advance copy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is all that Daily Planet stuff, which I don't mind. But then at the end, they're like, hey, Jenny Olsen, do you want to go on a date? Yeah, where do you want to go to? The giant crater in the middle of Metropolis? Would you like to just sit there with me? But there is a good moment where they're all going to get crushed and they're all sitting together and holding hands. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
It shows that there are people in this
Left.
enormous...
That are
in
left
this
alive.
enormous battle. Yeah. Overall, though... Like, honestly, and I know we've been heavy on the criticism for a lot of this, I like more
But
of
we've
this...
had a lot of laughs along the way,
Haven't we
James.
just?
Yeah.
But seriously, I like more of this movie than I don't.
same.
I think it gets a lot of it right. I think, though, at the same time, there is no definitive live-action modern version of Superman that we've gotten yet.
Yeah.
I feel like Henry Cavill could definitely come back and do that at some point.
Yes.
I would like to see that. This is just, for me, it's an interesting interpretation, but it doesn't all come together for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. And again, action sequences are great. It looks great.
Yep.
It's
It's very well acted and well cast.
Yeah, but and it's also this to me this idea, and it's the flashbacks are a symptom of it. He doesn't have a character arc, this Superman. At no point are you surprised that he becomes Superman and he saves the day at the end. Like
Yeah.
there's no tension where you're like, what side's he going to choose? I mean, we know it's Superman, but it's still it would
Yeah.
be nice. It'd be nice. It'd be nice if we could play pretend for 2 hours. You know what I mean?
And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
That's right.
Just pretending literally anything else is happening in the world. Like a giant alien invasion. God, what a relief
Oh my
that
god,
would
that
be.
feels so good.
Just to think about something else just for a second.
Oh my god, if I'll just a thing that I can knife fight. You know what I mean?
Sure. Absolutely. We are back for Caravan of Garbage. We are doing the Zack Snyder Man of Steel trilogy in its entirety.
That's right. And this week, it's Batman v Superman. A question of piss. Now, a little disclaimer ahead of time for people who may be new to the channel. Maybe we're getting some new viewers from this particular episode.
It's a hot topic.
Just to be clear, the series is called Caravan of Garbage.
Yep.
It's just a name we picked out a long time ago, and we make fun of things that we like, and we have good things to say about stuff we don't like.
That's right.
And vice versa. I don't like this one though. Just to be clear.
I want to talk about it, and then want to sum up everything at the end for my
cool.
particular opinions. But Mason, you've got us off to a cracking start.
That's right.
And people are going to leave a like because of that, no doubt. I don't think it can be argued, though, that the opening to this movie, aside from the Batman's parents getting shot again,
Oh yeah.
never looked better, by the way.
Yeah,
it looks
right?
incredible. It looks amazing.
Never looks slower. Tell you that much.
You know what's funny, though? I remember watching that in the cinema at the time and thinking, I never need to see this again, though. And then Joker, like a few years later, it's like, here you go again. But it's so matter-of-fact in Joker, just like, bang, the movie's finished or something.
My pearls. Ow.
But I think the idea of opening the movie with Bruce Wayne's perspective of Metropolis
Yes.
during that battle, I think that's an incredible idea.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great sequence.
Yep.
Of the action sequences, honestly, it might be actually one of the best. It's a Batman in Bruce Wayne mode. He can't tip his hand. He doesn't have his equipment with him.
He's running into smoke and debris like,
Yeah.
as everyone's running the other way. He's
Exactly.
never looked better, Affleck, by the way.
I agree.
He looks incredible.
But I mean, I do think that it is kind of a sad indictment of the Wayne financial corporate culture. Everybody decided they had to stay in the skyscraper while an alien invasion was happening. They're like, well, we better wait until the boss gets on the ground and literally calls us before we're allowed to leave. You know what? I'm quitting that day.
Absolutely.
I'm leaving.
But what I think it sets up really well, which then for me doesn't necessarily pay off.
The death of Jack.
Yeah, well, obviously,
Yeah,
that's
right.
a big part of the movie. But the idea of the conflict between Batman and Superman, I think it definitely gets wonky and falls apart later in the movie.
Yeah.
But as an initial jumping off point for why Batman would hate this guy, yeah, it makes perfect sense because he did bring that guy to Metropolis and he did throw him through a lot of buildings. He did knock down his satellite. You know, that probably cost a lot of money.
Right.
You know?
I do, I agree.
So I think it's amazing. I think it's such a great sequence. And it's good that we're talking about this because Ben, who edits these videos, he's actually made a video on why he loves this sequence in this movie that I'll link at the end of this. People should definitely check out. So yeah, people love his videos and you'll love that one. Trust me. More than you'll like this one probably.
That's
no
right.
doubt. Yeah. Do you think also there's a lot of stuff in this movie that's a direct answer to the destruction in Man of Steel? Because it does show the consequences of Superman's actions. He's going to court for things that he may have done or people perceive that he's done. And also, of course, in the final battle, not to jump ahead, there's so many lines like, oh my God, there's a monster loose, but don't worry, it's in an area that's not populated.
Yeah,
what time of day is it? Well, it's after work. Don't worry, everybody's already gone home from work.
But I do feel it's kind of rushed. There's a moment in this where we hear a reporter say, is this the end of the love affair with the man in the sky? And I'm like, what love affair? Like,
Yeah.
do you just mean all the newspaper clippings we've been seeing in this?
Yeah, I mean, there are sequences where people are like, we love this guy, he's Jesus or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And there was also the argument, I remember, for Man of Steel that the reason that he didn't handle the Metropolis thing super well is because it's his first day. And
Yeah.
he killed Zod, and from that was his realization that you shouldn't kill people.
It wasn't a gradual incline in the difficulty level for him. He didn't fight some bank robbers
No.
and then some armored car thieves and then Zod. It was
No.
just immediately some men fall out of the sky who can handily defeat him and
nearly do, yeah.
And nearly do, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, but off the back of that, and the idea that, well, Superman, he had to kill Zod, and now he doesn't kill. But he does kill in this, because very early on, he slams a guy through like 3 walls. We're talking about the ultimate cut, by the way, in case people are wondering with the 30 minutes of extra footage. A big subplot of this movie is, did Superman kill these people in the desert? Well, he killed one of them. But no, he didn't riddle the rest with bullets. Because a lot of the subplot is Lois holding up a bullet in like a plastic baggie and being like, where'd this come from? What's this about? This LexCorp bullet, who did this? Who do you think did it? Who do you think did it? I do like the idea that they lured Superman there through Lois Lane, like it was all set up. Jimmy Olsen, obviously. I feel like the Jimmy Olsen death was Zack Snyder saying, I don't know what to do with this Argyle sweater wearing nerd. Like, so I guess...
First of all, no Argyle sweater.
That's right.
Maybe he had Argyle socks. I didn't see it.
He may have. So I think that was very much like, I don't know what to do with this guy. Let's just shoot him. But the thing about that whole subplot, there's no mystery behind whether or not Superman did it because we saw that he didn't. So the mystery in itself feels kind of, why are we looking at this? Like, I mean, I know the people in the movie don't know that Superman didn't shoot a bunch of people with a gun.
Well, this is a Columbo-style situation, except it's worldwide and people are getting flamethrowered.
Sure. But again, I don't hate the idea that Superman would be framed for something because
It's happening in the comics.
Lex Luthor does it all the time, but you guys have flamethrowers. We've seen that. Do that and say it's laser vision or whatever, because you don't really know how any of that works. He doesn't use guns. Everybody knows that. Batman uses guns.
That's
Everybody
right.
knows that.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Batman? Branding. do you want to... Where are you at with that?
I'm not for it, I think. Again, Lex Luthor's plan, of course, is to find all the people that have been branded in prison and have them killed by other inmates, so it looks more like
Potentially.
Batman sending them to his death.
But even if he is doing that, Batman still knows that the people he's branding are getting murdered. So he's doing it anyway. But this is a different universe, and this Batman has obviously been pushed so far that he's just killing people willy-nilly. It happens a lot in this movie. But then how do you pull back from that?
You can't, especially in the smaller scale of a Batman universe of crime fighting in Gotham.
Yeah.
If Batman gets to the point where he's killed as many people as one of his villains, he hasn't really. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, one very easy tweak that could have been made to this movie is have him often go to the brink of nearly killing someone, and then when we see the nightmare sequence in the future where he does kill people,
Yes.
that's when he knows he's gone too far, and that's a lesson to him to maybe pull back, and that's could have informed him later in the movie when he gets the choice to kill a certain person and Chooses not to.
He certainly doesn't. This Batman, though, is not your granddad's Batman, which may be Keaton at this point. How old is anybody watching these movies anymore? But I love that they've incorporated some elements from like the Dark Knight Returns, like the drinking and whatnot. But it's also just like, but he drinks and he bangs women and he does CrossFit. Like he just does it all. Like he doesn't seem to make a choice. He's not a hard line on anything. He's just like, yeah, I do all the cool things. I drink heavily and I do CrossFit. How are you on the weird Zuckerberg, Max Landis, Lex Luthor situation?
I hate him. I hate the weird little noises he makes. I hate his hair, and I know it's just there. So later on, when he is incarcerated, finally they shave his head off, and he looks like the Lex Luthor we all know and tolerate fairly. I hate his weird speeches in public. I hate all his weird aphorisms that he just says and his weird little bits of wisdom. Actually, you know what? I don't hate the entirety of his plan, but what I do hate is that he set up all these super secretive means to potentially imply that Superman is flying around the world murdering people and what have you, and it's all ordering a man's death and sending out hit squads and all this sort of stuff. But also, he goes to a senator to request a permit so he can import some kryptonite.
Yes.
Just smuggle it in, mate. You've already done those murders. I think you've crossed the line, actually.
You're right, absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the idea that he's unbalanced, but I think you've mentioned this before. How is he even running day to day? Whenever he gives a speech, it's like metaphors and allegories about gods and men and demons and Icarus, but what are you even saying? None of it makes any sense or comes together, and I get that he's insane, but how does he even put his shoes on? You know what I mean? He's just like that level of
if you turn
nonsense.
his shoes around, one of them says God on it, one of them says the devil on it, and he goes, okay, God's on the right and devil's on the left.
And look, I don't think it's Jesse Eisenberg's fault. No doubt that they were like, do it this way, and they developed that character together, but this guy's not a threat to anybody, really, is he?
No.
I mean, he is, because of what happens in
all
this
the prior
movie.
stuff, sure.
But it just doesn't make sense to me, and it all boils down to a jar of piss, I guess, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Do you want to talk about that? What's to say, though?
There's so much to say. There's more. Look, I feel we could break down almost every scene in this movie, but there's so much to unpack in this scene. So if you can't remember, Luthor has a sort of a rivalry with a senator played by Holly Hunter.
Yeah.
And she attempts to sort of impart some folksy wisdom upon him of like, I'm not going to believe your lies. And she does it with the phrase, you can take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea. But I'm not buying that. But then later, she is present at a Senate hearing, and then she looks to the side of her podium and she discovers a big jar of golden liquid that has been helpfully labeled Granny's peach tea.
Yeah.
And the questions I've come to think about whenever I watch this scene, which is all the time. I watch it all the time. It's the one scene that I keep coming back to. First of all, whose piss is it? Is it Luthor's piss?
He's not well hydrated if it is.
That's true. Is it? Did he do a whip around in the office? Was he like, hey, everybody, can you put some piss in this? It's for charity.
But is it piss?
Or maybe it is peach tea.
Because it might not be.
Yeah.
What are the chemical compounds of it? We don't know. Superman should have walked in the room and go, there's a jar of piss in here.
And if I know my folksy wisdom from back in Smallville, Kansas.
That's true, he would.
If there's too much piss, there is something amiss.
It's also strange because he must have inevitably known that all of these things were going to get him caught. Because it culminates in him using his own DNA to make a horrible monster. So that when they tested that, they'd be like, some Lex Luthor stuff in this, isn't there?
But would they ever have gotten a chance to test it if Superman hadn't ultimately defeated what we're going to call Doomsday?
Sure.
First of all, that's not Doomsday, is it?
No. Well, they've also talked about how there might be another Doomsday.
And what's he going to do? Kill Superman again?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it?
Right?
Because you've already killed Superman.
Right?
Diminishing returns.
That's Doomsday's defining characteristic. But first of all, he doesn't look like Doomsday. He looks like a weird, toothy tadpole. Do you think, designers of this, do you think that you are better at designing Doomsday than legendary DC writer-artist Dan Jurgens? You're not. He's the best at this.
But you can't...
You couldn't give him some bony things on his face.
Well, he gets the protrusions as he gets damaged, etc. You can't blame it on designers because there is a vision of the creative team which craft this thing together.
Toothy tadpole.
Toothy tadpoles, for example. But yeah, you're right. He looks like a big, gummy, toothy baby tadpole man. He's shooting lasers out of his whole face and he's jumping around. And I don't think he can fly. I don't know how he got back from space. It's that same thing of like, you took him into space and he fell directly back down from where he came from. Why are you firing nukes at him as well, Martian Manhunter? What are you doing? You should be in the fight.
Absolutely.
What's he doing?
He's waiting for his time in the sequel. There are so many things in this movie that happen only because there is still runtime left in the movie and the movie needs to keep going.
Sure.
Again, there are some good action sequences in this movie. One of them that I enjoy quite a bit is the car chase sequence where Batman murders a lot of dudes.
Yeah, it's great.
In the Batmobile.
I'm sure these guys are fine. They're going to be 100% okay. They're not at all dead. Those guys in the car there.
And then, and it looks spectacular, and the stunts are spectacular, and the explosions are spectacular, and then he rounds a corner, the Batmobile crashes into Superman, it loses its proverbial wheel, and we get to see that Batman, who at this point we think is this invulnerable crime-fighting veteran, against Superman, he's not all that much.
No.
But then, Superman, face-to-face with Batman, could very easily flick him in the head and knock him out, unmask him as Bruce Wayne, and then just fly him around to different police precincts until he finds someone who's willing to arrest him for, I don't know, any of the crimes he's known to do, like any of the murders you just saw him do. Like, you just saw him.
Yeah.
That's why you were chasing him, because of all the murders.
It's also strange.
But he doesn't, because there's an hour and a half
Yeah.
left in the movie, and they've got to get to the fight at the end.
There should have been an encounter there between them where Batman is trying different things against Superman, and he loses that one, so he's more prepared second time round. Because he's never met this guy before.
Well, he used harsh words, didn't he?
Don't say shit like that to him. Like you said, he can just flick you in the head and you'll explode. And he might do it as well. Yeah.
Well, as far as you know, he will do it because you think he's a remorseless
If there's a 1%
murderer.
chance and the 99%, there's an absolute certainty.
Yep, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Direct quote.
So the Justice League are in this sort of as well, aren't they? In an email. And,
That's correct, yes.
I actually think Wonder Woman's really great and well cast. Like most of these movies, I think she's terrific, and we'll talk about her more in other things that we talk about, and probably this video, but that email, I mean, I don't want to get into it because it's been talked to death, but it's so strange. What struck me this time was when you see Cyborg's dad, Terminator 2's own, and he's like, I'm making this cyborg here, this is going not so well. Wait a minute, everything's working, and the mother box is like forming him, and then, even though he's filming this, he turns off the camera. That's what the camera's for. You're filming this. This is important scientific stuff.
No, he likes to keep his main discoveries his own little secret, you know?
Just for him.
Just for him, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But that whole thing of like, that's how we're introducing the Justice League, really? And it's certainly not the worst Justice League thing that we're going to be talking about, but just not very
But again,
good, is it?
could that be an example of studio interference? You know, maybe the idea was Snyder wanted to, introduce these characters more gradually in subsequent movies, but they went, we got to catch up on Marvel.
I don't know, because to me, it seems like there was a lot of free reign in this movie. And I'm sure, there's certain things that, yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know what I'm saying. Maybe.
It did occur to me, though, while I was watching that email unfold dramatically.
Yeah, whoa.
Maybe it would have been in Luthor's best interests if he wanted to kill Superman, to maybe manipulate some of the characters with actual superpowers. Maybe some of the younger ones
Sure.
with less experience who might be more easily tricked, like that dumbass The Flash.
Yeah, absolutely.
maybe if you know where they are and where they live and who they are, just be like, hey.
You could bait Aquaman into a bar fight with Superman.
Absolutely
Without
could,
a doubt,
yeah.
yeah. You know what I realized from this and also watching The Rise of Skywalker? Writer Chris Terrio, he loves a ghost dad tells you a little story, doesn't he?
Boy, does he ever, yeah.
Tell me a story about a river and dead horses. This makes me feel much better. Thank you very much. But the weird thing is that Martha Kent in this takes the role of Jonathan Kent from the previous movie, where she's like, you don't know the world a damn thing. This isn't your responsibility. It is. This is totally your responsibility.
Right?
All this weird alien shit, you triggered a lot of it. You are involved, whether you like it or not.
We're all gonna die. Literally everyone on Earth is probably gonna be killed by this toothy tadpole unless you stop him.
It's past the point of like, do you want to be Superman? You are Superman now. You just got to do it. I'm sorry. It's your first year. You got to give it at least 5, I feel, you know? So, of course, it does culminate in the battle between Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. It's just not a very good fight, unfortunately.
Look,
for
I have
me.
some notes here. Hang on. Let me
Yeah.
see if I can find some notes.
I mean, just
I wonder if I have some notes on this battle.
I mean, just from the opening.
I've written here, James.
I'm
The
ready.
actual fight is a masterclass. And then I pause dramatically and I say, in stupid contrivances that only exist to stop cooler heads prevailing. Ah ha 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 ha.
Well, it does open with Superman being like, we need to talk, and he gets right up in his face and then shoves Batman.
He goes, we need to talk. I certainly hope that I don't step on anything that'll prevent that from happening. And then he steps on a little device that sets the sonic screamers going. Nobody can hear nothing. Also, you didn't X-ray the ground?
Nah.
You know why? Because the fight has to keep going. That's
Exactly.
why.
What I do like about this fight, it is Batman trying different stuff. And there's a lot of like, I got some machine guns, I got some sonic stuff, I got some kryptonite, I got 2 kryptonite gas canisters, or 3, he's got a few more. But the idea also that you didn't just stab him straight up. If you wanted him dead, just shiv him.
Yep.
And the chances of him flying you through multiple buildings and walls and you ending up near the kryptonite spear, they're not great, are they?
They're
and
really
the fact
not,
that
no.
you were even remotely near that towards the end of the battle, you are very lucky.
I mean, you literally saw the Battle of Metropolis. You could have ended up in Metropolis.
I mean, it's only across the river.
Well, that's enough, right? At this
Yeah,
point,
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Clark has so many opportunities to explain to Bruce, hey, I need your help. But he doesn't take any of them because apparently machine guns bullets pinging off him ineffectively is enough to enrage him to the point where he'll throw Batman through a wall.
Yeah, well, he's had a bloody gutful of it because in the last movie, remember the army were like, let's just shoot everybody. And he's like, this is rude, actually. I don't like it.
Yes.
That's not enough.
Look, there's a point in this fight where Batman is reloading his grenade launcher and it takes him 10 full seconds. I've gone back a number of times and I've counted it. And while Superman is still a little bit under the weather...
Yeah, this is the second time he's going to be hit
That's
with
correct,
this as well.
yes.
So he knows what it is.
Right, he's not going to be surprised. He's like, it's the one thing in the world that might cause me some trouble.
Yeah.
And he could do... he's still powerful enough to grab Batman, ragdoll him. He could fly through a wall.
He could step out of the way.
He could step out of the way.
Don't catch it.
You could stomp the ground.
Yep.
You could attempt some heat vision, laser his hands off.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know. But you know what he does? Nothing until it's loaded and then he charges at him.
Yeah. God damn, that batsuit looks good, though. It's
It
one of
does
my
look- yeah,
faves.
it
It's
does
so good. And look, it's a very good looking movie. And I think a lot of individual sequences in this, like the warehouse fight, like the nightmare sequence, like the bit where the piss, it's good. Really terrific. But as a whole,
Yeah,
not
look,
quite.
it's got great opening sequence. So is the warehouse sequence.
Yeah.
Except when you remember he does get shot in the head several times and nothing happens. So what are they going to do? Are they just going to keep bearing down on him until he's like covered in goons?
Yep.
And then they're going to shoot him in the mouth?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe. Also, in that sequence, if I may,
Sure.
those goons have been told that if anybody comes from Mark Kent, kill her.
Yeah.
Immediately. Superman's got super speed. You better kill her straight away. But then Batman shows up in his Batplane and he blows up all their vehicles.
I love how it gives him a little kick up through the window.
Right?
That's terrific.
And then they're like, well, better get ready for a fight with Batman. Or you could kill her and leave. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's okay that we exist in this world where Batman is okay with killing. But even in the final sequence where the KG Beast, Callan Mulvey, has a flamethrower trained on Mark Kent, it's the moment where I'm like, Batman's going to do some trickery here. He's going to get out some gadgets. He's going to do
He
some
does,
martial
doesn't he?
arts. Alfred's going to drone in.
He
He's
came
going
in
to...
through the wall, and that's very Batman, isn't it?
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But you know what he does? He does the most Batman thing of all, which is to shoot the guy's flamethrower so he blows up and dies. So that's pretty cool and fun, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So I guess we do have to talk about the Save Martha thing, even though it's been talked to death. The only thing that I really have to say to add to it is, I'm surprised that Batman's surprised that Superman has a mother and that he didn't know that her name was Martha. Because I think at that point in the movie, he detected around enough to know that...
I would argue he didn't detect at all.
Oh yeah, you might be right.
Look, and here's the thing. So critics of this scene will say, isn't it dumb that it took him to figure out that their mother's names were both Martha for Batman to stop attempting to murder Superman? And then apologists of this scene will say, no, that's the moment where Batman realizes that even though they might be from different worlds, they both have similar things that show their humanity and that they both have a mother. But I would say that's still dumb because you'd think that Batman, being the world's greatest detective, probably would have figured that out from any of the other things Superman had done.
Yeah.
Like saving all those people from floods and fires.
Yep.
Or maybe like figure out his identity and then like go to his house and observe him and see
Yes.
that he's a nice man with
a nice
Lois.
man.
That he does have a mother.
He hasn't murdered more people than you, probably.
Oh,
Maybe.
Metropolis, who knows? But I mean, 20 years in Gotham, you maybe have killed 5,000 people.
And then we get Doomsday, don't we?
Sure do.
This is a very long movie, and I just think my big problem with this is that it just runs through a whole lot of stuff from the comics in 1, 2.5 or 3 hour block. So we get Shades of the Dark Knight Returns, the death of Superman, plus it's a Justice League prequel. All of these things together, it's far too much. I don't mind the Doomsday battle, I guess, for what at the time was unusual to see a big grey hulking monster and fire and smoke and lightning. Like that was kind of the first time we'd see, or one
This
of
is
the earliest
pioneering,
times,
that's right,
in
yeah.
a way. And every DC movie since then has kind of done a variation on that. Not all of them. Joker had that alley thing that we talked about.
That's right. There's some great stuff in the battle. Here's a line from Batman that I enjoyed. I've got to get it to chase me back to the city, back to the kryptonite. No, you don't. You're in a plane. Doomsday's busy over here doing whatever he's doing on Stryker's Island or whatever's happening. Just fly back on your own.
go get it.
I mean, he's pretty big, but he probably won't have destroyed that entire island by the time you get
No,
back.
because no one's around, so he's just going to be stomping around being like,
That's probably true, yeah.
everyone went home from work already. The line, is she with you? I thought she was with you.
I kind of like that line.
Yeah, but the thing is though, Batman, you sent her an email. She's with you. You know that, right? Like it feels like it's just for the trailers. Who's that
Yep.
for? Also, why does Superman go, I have to do this, I have to be the guy with the spear? I understand you wouldn't give it to Batman because he's a man and he'd definitely die.
Sure.
Like even if he got the spear in him, he'd definitely die. So give it to Wonder Woman. She's doing very well against Doomsday.
She seems, honestly, upon a rewatch, she seems to be having a great time.
Yeah, I know,
She's
right?
smiling and laughing.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, Wonder Woman, I'll take your lasso of truth.
Yeah.
And you take the spear. You can kind of fly, I think.
Wonder Woman could eat a piece of kryptonite and she would be fine.
Right.
The idea that Superman sacrifices himself is stupid because in the Death of Superman story, he does it because Doomsday has torn through the Justice League and he's the only one left with powers that are even remotely in the ballpark of Doomsday.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, with the kryptonite sphere, or even without, there's another person who could do this. Also, she's proficient in short-range weapons. You're not.
And Martian Manhunter's still out there.
He's still out there.
Send the Flash in. Get him to stick the spear in, then come back every couple of seconds and tap it in a little bit further.
He'd fall over.
He'd fall over, it's probably true.
And then, of course, what I've always had a problem with this movie is that why would people care that Superman died? What he's done here, he's died fighting another terrible thing that's from the terrible planet that he is from. So I'd be kind of like, well, I'm glad Doomsday's dead, but I'm also kind of glad that Superman's dead.
It seems a little bit like Superman's a real beacon for horrible things happening to my city and the lives of my family. So, you know, swings and roundabouts, I guess.
It certainly is. This kind of universe, I think it would be better suited if Zack Snyder did like an Injustice version of this.
Yeah.
I think he'd nail it.
I think so too.
The idea that they're these dark, twisted versions of the characters, I don't have a problem with that, but it doesn't seem to add up because they also try and shoehorn them into the way that they are in the comics a lot of the time, and it just doesn't mesh. And it's probably just the murdering, but it's the sadness of a lot of the main characters, in particular Superman, that it doesn't work for me. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
That being said, I'd watch the heck out of a Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Laura Cohen Flashpoint movie in the future where she's the Joker and he's alternate Batman guy from the, you know what I mean?
I wonder if maybe that's been part of the plan all along.
Who knows at this point what we're actually going to see, but I would love to see Zack Snyder's version of that weird twisted universe where Wonder Woman and Aquaman are fighting against each other, and we are maybe getting a Flashpoint movie. It's kind of the direction that Batman v Superman is going, because Flash comes back in time and is like, Superman's a horrible murderer, you probably had a dream about it.
Look, I feel like the idea that Batman is basing so much of his opinion on Superman, not on detecting, not on his obvious good deeds that he's doing in real life, but by
Obvious good deeds?
but by a couple of dreams he had one night.
I mean, he saw the Metropolis thing.
Maybe his dreams are being affected by the fact that his breakfast is pills and booze.
Yeah, it might be.
And he might be a little bit stressed out.
Well, that's the thing, like, I mean, and obviously this question would have been answered if we got Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, which of course we are getting. But none of this stuff is answered. Like, Superman just kind of comes back and it's all resolved. And like, what was the nightmare sequence? Where was the Flash in the future? Why did he have a little mustache under his helmet? What's the plan here? And I can kind of piece it together from the things that they were going to do, I think. But none of that is resolved, and that's obviously why the Justice League bombed horribly. Not just why, but that was like a factor into people hating it.
James, I'm going to go crazy with notes. Okay, number one, I've written here, it was nice of Luthor to knock up logos for all the heroes.
Well, he had an intern, probably.
I guess he had an intern, yeah. It's
Yeah.
probably. I've just written here, this is just a visualization for myself.
Okay.
It just says, in the final battle, Batman v Superman. Batman spinning Superman around on his grappling hook, but it's Rose from Titanic. It's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Well, Ben will edit that together. It's going to look terrific.
Terrific. I've written here, and then everyone goes to Clark Kent's open casket funeral. How will they explain his return from the dead in the next one? Surprise, they won't.
You can't put that on this movie, though, I feel.
You don't think so?
No.
I think he was just like, it's a cool visual.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I mean, he wanted the counterpoint between the huge, opulent, dramatic military funeral of Superman, the icon,
Yeah.
versus the humble funeral of farm boy Clark Kent.
Yes, I got it.
Sure.
I understood it.
We get things, yeah. I've just written here, it's kind of interesting that Clark Kent, journalist, doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is. You know, billionaire, industrialist,
I mean, he's
socialite.
new. He's new.
Yeah, he's probably new. He's new to Earth, I guess.
I mean, he's 32, but he's new.
Yeah, look, honestly, I could talk about Batman v Superman all day. Not entirely positively, but it's got a lot of stuff in it, doesn't it?
that's the thing, it does have a lot of stuff
which
in
is
it.
where I think Justice League fails, which we might talk about
absolutely.
next week.
Here's the thing, though. All of these complaints that I have of this movie, I can't explain this, but watching this again, I like this. And I don't know what it is about it that I do like in particular. It's like with love, I guess. When you know, you know. Do you know what I mean? And this isn't me trying to placate people who love this movie, because I think I've said enough horrible things about it where people are going to come at us regardless. But it's just a big, silly movie. And I think the scene that kind of sums that up the most for me is where there's an unshaven Ben Affleck Batman storming into Lex Luthor's cell, and he's got the bat-shaped car cigarette lighter, and he's waving it around in his face. What a weird and silly scene to put in a movie.
Yeah, right.
And you see something like that, and to me, that's not something that I go, well, this is dark and gritty, and this is the realest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's just a funny, silly thing that's happening in a pretty silly, funny movie.
Did he knock out those two guards?
I don't know what
Where'd
he
they
did.
go?
He probably killed him.
Probably.
But I know you've got a lot of thoughts in relation to themes of this movie.
Well, that's the
and the
thing.
rich themes.
Well, here's the thing. James. There are going to be some people out here who have gotten to this point in the video, and they're like, you two are idiots, which is true.
We know.
We know we're idiots.
We don't understand anything.
But you've just talked about action, and you've talked about explosions and special effects and mustache
Bullets.
twirling and bullets. That's not what this movie's about. This movie.
We talked about the piss. What do you mean?
This is no, James. No. It's not about props either. This movie, it's filled with themes. We didn't talk about the themes. It's filled with allegories.
Yes.
It's filled with references.
Demons, gods, paintings, upside down paintings.
Upside down paintings.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, it's clear to me that outside the theater where Bruce Wayne's parents are killed, right, we see an advertisement for Excalibur, the movie Excalibur, right, which is a portent for things to come, obviously, because in the Arthurian legend, King Arthur and Sir Lancelot, they're both good, righteous men.
Yep.
Two good, righteous men.
Like Bill and Ted.
Exactly. Who, through years of battling evil together,
And I command you now, all, to fight!
they form this relationship of like loyalty and trust and friendship that seems unbreakable, but then forces outside themselves. They tear apart this bond, which is a perfect allegory for Batman and Superman in the comic book Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. But in this movie, they're just a couple of guys who've met once or twice, who have to have a big fight because of an easily solved misunderstanding.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? But it's good to know, I feel, that Batman v Superman has just as much in common with like an Arthurian myth as it does with two drunk guys just punching up in a parking lot. Mythic allegories as old as time, James.
I think maybe that Excalibur allegory might be that movie came out in 1981 and it just kind of sets the time frame of this movie.
No, I've seen graphics. I've seen graphics to the contrary, James.
Okay. So it just seems like you didn't get it, to be honest.
No,
you didn't get it.
When people are like, oh, what are they? When I say that, the outside forces tore them apart, in the Arthurian legend, it's Guinevere,
Sure.
who is King Arthur's wife, but then becomes the lover of Lancelot sometimes.
Yeah.
Who's that in the movie?
The building you knocked down.
Oh, Makes a lot of sense then.
It's the CEO that was left
Oh, it's
behind.
Jack.
It's Jack.
Oh my god, it makes a lot of sense. Is it crime fighting?
Is his name Jack?
Is it because Batman's jealous that Superman's taking all the crime fighting?
It's so strange that they circle each other the whole movie being like, you better stop what you're doing. You should both stop what you're doing.
Yeah,
like, to be
right?
honest.
You should both leave to your respective caves and never come back. You're causing more trouble than you're solving, honestly. Anyway, I just wanted to say that just to point out for people who are like, you don't understand the themes. I know there are themes in it. I know all the Moby Dick, there's a theme.
Yeah.
Prometheus, there's a theme in this movie.
Who's the whale? Is it Jack? Is it Jack?
No, it's Superman in this instance, yeah.
Who's Prometheus? Michael Fassbender?
No, I think it's Lex Luthor.
Oh, what's the piss mean?
It's just piss, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just piss.
Just piss. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Great, terrific. Got some trivia here because people love trivia. And if we
That's
don't
right.
mention trivia, people will be like, you didn't mention this. Well, guess what? Here's a screenshot of some IMBD trivia. We're not doing it. This is long enough, all right? Don't you feel?
Absolutely, yep. Just to be clear, we've seen the page. We know it's there.
We know it's there. And you can visit it and check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to sum this up for me, if you like this, and just because we've ripped through it in a big way,
We rip through everything.
we do. Well, not everything. But
Not good stuff.
yeah, but I really don't want that to detract from people's love for it. And I don't think you're an idiot if you love this movie. You can like whatever you like, and that's great. If you get a lot of joy out of this, I genuinely think it's terrific because I also get a lot of joy out of this, it turns out. Watching this again, I liked it much more than when I saw it the first time where I thought it was okay.
And this, for people who don't know, this is a rewatch of this movie without the weight of expectations because
Yeah,
we
totally.
started our podcast,
Yeah, the Weekly Planet. Good plug, Mason.
thank you, in anticipation of this movie coming out in theaters. Every week we would have some new news about the production of Batman v Superman. Also, a lot of Shia LaBeouf news. But we had to make a choice, and we went with BVS.
Anyway, I'm genuinely curious if people love or hate this movie or somewhere in between. If you do want to talk about that below, that'd be great. Be civil if you could. If you want to scream at anyone, you could scream at us. That's okay.
I'm not reading them, so yep.
But of course, we will be back next week for Justice League, which is it's worse in every way because it's doing less. But we'll talk about it next week, obviously, to cap off this trilogy in the lead up to the Snyder Cut, which of course is releasing at some point, isn't it?
That's right.
We are back to cap off the Zack Snyder Justice League, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman trilogy. This is his movie. It says so in the movie. It says a Zack Snyder film or movie.
Anyway, this is going to be a real dramatic finale to this trilogy. It's the real. Oh my god! It's such a. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong notes. I'm looking at Batman v Superman. This one's a real wet fart, this movie, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, absolutely. And look, the reason we're here is because we run polls on Patreon to be like, what do people want to see? And there was high demand for this trilogy. So we appreciate that. If you want to contribute, you can. It's linked below. And of course, if you could leave a like, that would be great. And I just want to mention, we're not really going to get into the specifics of the reshoots and the multiple versions of this movie that could have been. We've got videos on that on the channel,
That's
which we'll link
exactly
below
right.
if you do want to check it out.
We don't want to focus on what this movie isn't.
Yeah.
We want to focus on just the magic of the silver screen. What
That's
we
right.
saw when we entered that cinema and we're like, is this a PS3 cutscene? What's happening?
What is happening? Yeah. And I just want to say also, I am going to say some good things about this movie, but I want people to bear in mind that it is infinitely worse than the two that come before this.
I
In
agree.
almost every way. I feel like that's going to be skewed somewhat, so I need to say that.
But I also feel like that isn't necessarily a more controversial opinion.
I just meant people might be upset that I'm saying anything good about this movie.
Oh, sure,
That's
sure,
where
sure.
that's where I'm
I
coming
see.
at this from.
I
yeah.
understand. Okay, we're on the
Yeah.
same page now.
It's interesting though with this movie because things were looking good because there was a bit of an uptick in the DC universe in general. I know Batman v Superman has its fans, but it didn't perform super well. It didn't hit $1 billion. I'm not saying it's a flop. Please don't misconstrue that. But it didn't perform as well as it should have. Wonder Woman though came out and crushed it.
Yeah, right.
Universally beloved. And yes, I know some people didn't like it. I know. I'm talking in generalities.
James, you're not allowed to speak in generalities on the internet.
Yeah.
Everything you say must contain the sum total of all human knowledge. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're right. But the thing is, this is obviously a response to Batman v Superman because it started filming straight away. That movie came out, then they went straight into this. And the reason it was changed, I feel, is purely financial. If Batman v Superman had have made $1 billion, $2 billion,
$10 billion?
Yeah,
$100 billion.
$100 billion. Other numbers.
Infinity dollars.
But my point is, the Transformers movies, for example, they didn't change the formula, even though they're not good,
Right.
generally speaking, because they made money. And that's why this movie was changed to this.
Yeah, right,
It's purely financial.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's right. It's just the reality of it.
Movie
yeah.
studios are just machines. If a thing keeps working, they'll keep making it until it doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. So the intro to this, the phone footage, straight away you're like, something is wrong with this movie.
You do, but I think that's an interesting way to start a movie. Like, I think...
I just meant visually.
No, exactly. But I mean conceptually fresh and hip.
Yes.
And interesting. But visually, yes, it's very weird. The whole thing's very weird. Superman seems visibly annoyed that some small children who idolize him are daring to speak to him.
That might be the mustache
I think
lip
it's partly
situation.
that. In rewatching it, I'm like, okay, he's trying to come across as
Jovial
and friendly and
Yeah.
trying to inspire these little kids. But the lack of mustache,
Yes.
the upper lip that you could park a plane on,
Yeah.
is really contributing to him looking kind of annoyed.
Look, we know that everybody knows about Mustache Gate at this point in time, but this will become a relic of the internet. So who knows what people are going to remember. Do you want to quickly explain the mustache situation?
Oh, absolutely. Look, to the best of my knowledge, the initial shoot of Justice League was complete, and Henry Cavill, Superman, he moved on to filming another movie, which was Mission Impossible Fallout,
Yes.
for which he grew a spectacular mustache. But then it was requested that he come back and reshoot most of Justice League.
Yeah.
So Warner Brothers asked the producers of Mission Impossible if he could shave his mustache for the purpose of the reshoots, and they said absolutely not. And they said, what if he shaves it and we spend more money than has ever been spent on a very realistic fake mustache for your production of Mission Impossible? They said absolutely not. How about instead what you do is he keeps his mustache, he films as Superman with a mustache,
Yes.
and you remove it digitally. And they were like, yep, what's the worst that could happen? The opening scene of Justice League is what could happen, I
And
guess.
various scenes throughout. It's interesting because people have done their own at-home versions of this and have had better results. So it's interesting that this is it. Somehow.
yeah, and again, like-
it's such an expensive movie. The budget on this
Yes.
is insane.
$300 million?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, they fudged the numbers but this was a massive bomb.
Infinity dollars?
No, Mason, much less.
Oh, okay, right. But yeah, but again, like, I feel it's important to note when you criticize visual effects in movies, when it's a major motion picture, they bring in the best of the best to do this sort of stuff. The issue is often time and money.
Yeah.
If you only give them the briefest amount of time to fix this sort of stuff, you get what you get in the time allotted. And I think that's what they got here.
Totally. I think they could have fixed this scene, and I've mentioned this before, if they just didn't show Superman's face. It's a kid holding a camera, so they're just holding it askew and you don't see it.
Yeah, right.
I think that would have fixed the entire scene.
Or they've accidentally left a Snapchat filter on, and he's got a cartoon mustache. And then we wouldn't even know.
That is a better
A
idea.
little monocle keeps appearing.
That's
you
right,
know?
yeah. Another massive problem with this film is it looks terrible. The
Yeah, oh,
color
yeah.
grading, it's like a horrible cartoon nightmare.
Almost everything in this movie looks like a video game cutscene.
Yeah.
But also, the visual effects in the Steppenwolf versus the Amazon scene are so jarring, it looks like it's going to turn into a Kit Kat ad. Like, you know how sometimes you'll be watching maybe you're at the movies, you're watching a scene that looks like an epic. It's an epic battle for the ages, and they're all charging with their horses and their spears. And then somebody's like, oh, I could do with a break. Let's have a Kit Kat.
It's Mr. T with a Snickers or something.
Exactly, right? It looks like that level of dissonance between the live action actors and the background visual effects, where you go, this isn't movie grade visual effects.
Yeah.
This is advertisement grade.
That's exactly right.
That's what this movie looks like.
I think a large part of that, though, is the color grading, and they brighten everything up. It makes everything look worse, and you're not supposed to see the things that are happening in this movie like that. And I think the opening scene on the rooftop with Batman is a perfect example, because it's as bright as day,
Yes.
practically. It looks like a cartoon, and that Ben Affleck Batman suit, which I love, does not hold up under that kind of lighting and scrutiny. It looks fake and rubbery in a way that it didn't in the previous movie.
I agree. At that scene, I want a special shout out to Holt McCallany.
I love him.
From the movie Mindhunter, who plays the burglar
The
in that
television
scene.
serial
That's exactly
Mindhunter.
right. He's a comedic foil. He's just a big exposition machine. At one point, he says of the parademon we see, he says, from space, like an alien army. And I feel like he should have continued, you know, like in one of Joss Whedon's previous superhero movies. Like, you know, one of the ones that was really well liked.
He's got a big sack of loot.
It feels just so good to steal this bag of miscellaneous valuables from a tenement building in a cartoon city, you know?
Yeah, it's horrible. And that also, there's a few other things that I don't like about that scene. In particular, Bruce Wayne is just talking to Alfred openly. He's like, Alfred, are you seeing this? And the guy's standing right there.
Yeah.
There's a number of moments in this film where characters are outed for their real identities. When Batman is talking to Aquaman and he's like, Don't count on it, Batman. What, you're Bruce Wayne and you dress like a bat? There's a moment also where Clark Kent comes back and Lois Lane is like, Clark! And there's just cops standing around. But I guess, do identities even mean anything in these movies?
Look, I mean, it's in the zeitgeist, James. People are just giving up their identities. We're in a post-Iron Man 2008 world where superheroes are just like, what are you going to do? I'm rich and I have a lot of guns. What are you going to do? Come to my house, I'll shoot you.
But in these movies, we are supposed to assume that people don't know who these people
Yeah,
are.
I know.
That's the difference here.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, I love the opening credits. In particular, there's 3 moments I want to point out. There's a newspaper article that says, Supergerm could end humanity. There's white supremacists running amok, and people miss Superman. And one of those 3 things to me doesn't ring true to the modern day. Which one do you think it is, Mason?
I think it's probably the bloody white supremacists getting arrested.
It's supposed to be this kind of dramatic, I guess almost Watchmen-esque opening
It did
sequence.
feel that way, yeah. We learn about the state of the world through this, continuously panning exploration of the environment kind of thing. We got the homeless man saying with this little sign that says "I tried."
That's right. People think that's actually related to Joss Whedon did it on purpose.
That's
but
his admission that he tried to make this a good movie. Well,
I think people blame a lot of this on Joss Whedon, when what really happened is Warner Brothers probably went to him and went, do you want $10 million to just do these reshoots, but you have to kind of do it exactly like this, because it doesn't feel like any kind of director's vision. There's Whedon-esque elements in it, and we'll get to them.
Yes.
But I don't think you can blame any of this on one particular person, right?
no, I don't think so either. Both credited directors, have produced good work in the past, and this doesn't really feel like either of them. It just feels like, a series of notes from a movie studio. No,
exactly. Yeah. I think the Wonder Woman opening scene with the terrorist stuff is fine, though there is that moment when the bullet is going to hit her, but it's clearly not going to hit her when she ducks out of the way.
Well, better be safe than sorry. That's how she survived however long she's been alive.
100 of years.
100 of years,
That's
exactly.
right. I love the moment where Bruce Wayne's like, I gotta go find Aquaman. I gotta get the team together. And he takes so long to do so, because he's on horseback, presumably, that he grows a full beard. But he's got 8 different planes, maybe, just that we know about.
Right?
Ben Affleck's hair and face and wig in this is so distracting.
Yes.
Because it's in scenes, because it goes shot for shot,
Yeah,
and it changes. And I know that he did have some personal problems in between these shoots, and he's kind of a bit bloated from alcoholism. Look, I don't really want to get into it. I'm not trying to kick him, but it's just very noticeable, and the hairline of the wig shifts dramatically. It's so visually jarring.
I know you're a very big wig connoisseur. So.
Yeah. Also, I love that this version of Aquaman he litters in the ocean and
He
he's
just
like,
throws a bottle of whiskey in the ocean.
he's like, I don't even care about global warming. I love it, in fact. Because he's that kind of guy. He's not a snowflake, is he? He's
That's
a cool,
true.
rad dude.
There should have been a scene later in Aquaman, the movie, when the Atlanteans are like, we're throwing all this litter back onto the surface world, and he's like tugging at his collar like, oh. Maybe he didn't feel as connected to his heritage then.
Yeah.
So.
I think he does have some good moments in it, and even more so in his own movie. That bubble moment is weird, where they step into the air bubble together.
They didn't quite know how to say, how do we speak underwater?
I think it's not that.
You think so?
Upon rewatching this, I think it's because it's a reshoot.
Yes.
And that way you can just do it against a green screen, and you don't have to CGI the hair all floating about.
That's also
That would have
true,
been
yeah.
super expensive.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that whole movie, the Aquaman movie, all the underwater stuff, they comp out all the hair and re-put it back in.
Right.
You don't have to do any of that. You can just have them standing in a bubble. Barry Allen.
Yes.
I've just written, learn to run, idiot.
That's your whole deal.
It's the only thing you do.
Right?
And there's also that moment, and I know we've talked this to death, but when Batman turns up and is like, come and join my team. Do you like being on a team? And he's like, I love being on teams. And he's like, I don't know what your abilities are. Catch this batarang. You don't know what's going to happen
It
here.
might be that he has incredible quantum teleportation abilities that are only interrupted by like solid stainless steel. That'll definitely kill him. That's his one weakness, kryptonite style.
Yeah, just not good.
Look, I've written here somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. I've written Barry Allen walks this line between enthusiastic and annoying, and then he steps right over it.
Yeah.
Like there's some moments, especially in that scene where he's first meeting Batman, where I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. He needs friends, or he's what are you doing in my house or whatever. But then he's like, brunch. What's the deal with brunch?
I think that's the Joss Whedon kind of reshoot dialogue.
Yeah.
Because there's the classic Joss Whedon falling on some boobs.
Yep.
Great gag.
Uh-huh.
There's a moment where Superman's like, I thought you didn't like me. And Batman's like, well, I kind of like you. It's just...
Yeah.
I think Victor Stone is good in this and very hard done by. I think
yeah.
he puts in a very good performance for the 40 seconds he's in this movie, really.
It's true.
Yeah. There's also an unfinished plot point, and I know it's in the other version, where Cyborg's like, am I a bad guy or not? And Aquaman's like, maybe this guy's a bad guy. He's not. he's just not.
That would have taken up too much time. We need to look at other things. We need to insert an Eastern European family who are being pestered by alien space bugs. So there's no time for character development, all right?
Why put in that family? And I sort of get it because it's like, these are some people on the ground that you, the audience, can relate to.
Yes.
But you know who I want to relate to and feel empathy for? The fucking main people in these movies, the Justice League. That's who I'm here for.
Oh, yeah?
They don't even talk.
It's...
I don't know. It's just bizarre to me. What a weird addition. You mentioned this before, but the boom tube effect, it's so bad for one. And it doesn't really boom. It goes
Oh, it's a pachoo tube.
Yeah. It's a weird kind of beehive-esque pattern on it, sort of, and it's just a big blue laser and...
Well, they had some 3D models of big blue lasers lying around, yeah.
Yeah. And look, to get back to the Themyscira escape,
Yes.
where they try to get rid of the box, I actually don't mind that sequence, the idea that they're trying to get it away from him. It looks bad, but...
Look, side note. Every scene with Steppenwolf, I've just written here on my notes, Steppenwolf looks so bad.
He looks so bad.
Atrocious.
And it's, of course, because they changed the look of the character. A lot of that was probably supposed to be Darkseid, including the flashback, which, by the way, really great.
Flashback's good. Don't tease a Green Lantern in Act 1 and then not pay it off later. Like, I mean, it's a bit vague, but I feel confident in saying when I saw this at the cinemas, I'm like, well, they're all in a lot of trouble, but when Green Lantern shows up, they're laying the groundwork. One of these side characters must be, maybe it's the Russian man in the house. Maybe he's going to be Green Lantern.
Maybe Martian Manhunter is also a Green Lantern.
Right? Yes.
He's holding all the cards. But the idea behind how they're trying to keep these boxes away from Steppenwolf, they're so bad at it. For one, on Themyscira, where are you taking it? One person has ever left. You're going to get it off the island? Have you got another room made of rocks you can put it in that he can easily smash through? What are you doing?
Not just a room of rocks, and then a bunch of Amazons with regular bows and arrows
Yeah,
surrounding
that's
it.
right, yes.
What do you think's going to come out of that? Like a deer?
Yeah,
You think a deer's going to come out of the mother box? You can shoot it, get some venison?
I love it how Martha Kent is losing her house. And it's hilarious to me that Bruce Wayne didn't step in to pay for the house earlier. Like he's
right.
letting this happen, which is odd because he paid for the funeral of Clark Kent.
Yes.
But then I thought about it and I realized that funeral probably wasn't very expensive anyway. It's like a cheap wooden box, some finger food, and a hole in the ground. That was maybe $5,000 at the most.
That's probably true,
So I think for that, he was like, yeah, no problem.
Right.
I'm happy to show.
A whole house? I don't know. Where's my profit margin there, you know?
I mean, buying the bank, that's his profit margin. So I think he figured out a way to do it that would also benefit him.
Exactly.
I'd imagine, yeah.
Also, you got to remember that, at Clark's funeral, he obviously had to buy him 2 sets of clothes, the suit he was wearing, and then the ruined track pants he was wearing underneath.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Would you want to talk about that, his return?
Well, I guess so, yeah.
Well, you touch the box, a lightning box, and he comes back. I don't mind that fight sequence. It looks bad because it's all been recolor graded.
Yeah.
But they're all coming at him and he's kind of batting them aside. It's all right.
Looks pretty good, yeah. I'm down on everything that came before that, I think.
Yeah.
One, Cyborg and Flash decide they have to dig up Clark in real time at regular speed.
Yeah.
There's a clock ticking, guys. Come on. Flash, you dig him up super speed. Cyborg, you can say a prayer.
Yeah.
And it's all worked out.
But I like in that sequence where the Aquaman's like, oh yeah, we say Aquaman in Australia, not Aquaman. Just, we'll get the comments. It's one of those things I feel like I need to mention. But he's immediately like, this is very wrong and upsetting. Like like all his vital signs are just off the charts at this point.
Also, what's your backup plan if this doesn't work? Because statistically speaking, it's never worked. No one's ever brought anyone back from the dead. So pretty slim chance.
But if there's even a 1% chance that they're in the
that's true,
slightest
yeah.
possible, absolute certainty.
Right.
They twist it, Mason.
They did a little bit, didn't they? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Yeah, Batman's 180 on Superman. It's insane.
Right?
He's clearly gone mad between movies. I do like that moment, though, genuinely, where he baits Wonder Woman into shoving him.
I've written here, Batman's so mean, and I don't like it. He's so mean to everybody. He's like your dead boyfriend. You liked him, and then he crashed into a thing and died, didn't he? Sucks to be you. Oh, being hit. That's rude.
And then it cuts to a Flash, and he goes, if she kills you, we're all gonna cover for her.
That's a
Great
good
reshoot. It's
impression.
really good.
I liked it, yeah.
Thanks. It's also cool that when Superman gets out, they all leave Batman in the Kryptonian ship. They fuck off, and they go to fight. Well, pants his way across the grass to get
Well,
there.
I mean, to be fair, that's how it was really going to go. I've written here, because Superman, obviously, he goes on this sort of rampage. We don't know if he's good or bad at this point. I've written here, a funny bit would be if Superman's DNA mixed with the photo of Pa Kent that fell in the liquid, and he woke up with an unstoppable drive to go fishing. I think that would have been good. Clark, no! Not to the fishing hole!
I like how Wonder Woman tricks Aquaman into his feelings. That's good. There we
yeah.
go. There's a thing that I like. Why are Batman's vehicles so fucking weird in this?
They're not good, are they? They're not...
There's a weird crab. There's a
Yep.
big flying whale.
Yep.
What?
He was trying to encourage Aquaman to be on the team. He's like, look what I got. I got a crab. I got a whale. Those are things you like, aren't they? Hey, huh?
There's also that moment, of course, where he assembles the team and he gets them together and he's like, get ready for my plan. You guys all wait here and I'm going to fly the ship in alone. You've assembled the team. That's what the team's for, idiot. And then they come in and like, we're changing your dumb plan. Because remember how you got us all together to do this thing together?
Was it to be spectators? That's interesting.
I also like how Superman shows up and beats up Steppenwolf. And I know it defeats the purpose of the rest of the Justice
Yes,
League.
it does.
Because he does all of their jobs. I've just written in my notes, and I don't know where it refers to, but it's towards the end. I've just written, God, this movie looks like shit. But not even the color grading, the way it's framed.
Yeah.
Because at least Batman v Superman, all the shots are so purposeful.
I have a note here that just says, even the door to the Batcave is CGI. They arrive at the Batcave, they arrive on that elevator, and the door just CGI's open, and it looks terrible.
Yeah.
Just build a real door and get some stagehands to pull the real door open.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Absolutely. Or don't have a door on it. It's an
Don't have a
elevator
door.
without a
The
door.
door.
Now, we neglected to mention, and we certainly didn't forget, the score from the other movies. The Hans Zimmer combination.
That's right.
It's really great. That Man of Steel theme, all the BVS stuff. Yeah, the combination of Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL and how they sort of left or were kicked off this project and replaced by Danny Elfman, who's good. He's good.
Yep.
But then they're just like, we're just putting in the Burton Batman theme. We're just going to put in the Chris Reeve Superman theme. And I understand, like, I get it because people know those. But this score is nothing. I feel bad only bringing up the score in these movies now just to say, this isn't good, when the previous two were so good. But hey, it's worth mentioning, I feel.
I agree. Do the Flash and Cyborg have iconic... Wonder Woman's got... But do Flash and Cyborg have iconic themes?
Yes.
Oh, Cyborg's is compute pew 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 computer games. Doodle-doo. That's his, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's for the Flash as well.
Yeah, right.
Just like, yeah, this is fine. Because the Flash probably likes computer games.
We like
He
computer
likes
games.
Rick and Morty.
That's right.
He's just like us.
He's just like us.
That's my in into this movie. Because when
great.
he sees the bat signal, he reacts how I would react. That's the signal. That's how we know to go.
You are Batman, he says. Hey, bystander, that's Batman.
Jim Gordon's in this.
Yep. J.K. Simmons, love him.
Great,
but,
great,
I mean,
great.
he's in it for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Clark returns to work, doesn't he?
Yep. It's still never resolved. There's not even a line. There's not even a line in there. What could it be? I don't know. I mean, it would be a convoluted line. It'd be something like, oh, hey, Clark, it's interesting you are still alive, and the man we all presumed died was a different man who looked a lot like you, and we all went to his funeral. I mean, it's sad that he died. And you didn't, you fell under some rocks or something. I don't know. Maybe that's what happened.
Where are you on post-credits?
Oh, of course, look. Look, James.
First one, I like the first one.
Oh, that's right. The race between Superman and
Good.
the Flash. That's fun. And that's, that's a nod to very much the classic Superman, the Flash rivalry. Who's the fastest
They're
on the
always
ground.
racing.
That's right. And obviously, it would be the Flash if he wasn't such a goose.
Yes, that's right. How many times does he fall in this movie?
At least twice.
Yeah. I wouldn't fall. Because if I could run that fast, all I would do is practice.
Why doesn't he eat his pizza at super speed? He's about to get into Bruce Wayne's $1 million Mercedes. Why does he have to eat it slow?
I'm not sure.
It's a good question to ask, though, isn't it?
He's got a lot of good questions, that guy, though, specifically around brunch.
Yeah.
What is brunch? Is it food or is it lunch? It's not even a topical reference. Like, brunch has been around for a very long time.
Right.
People understand brunch at this point.
It's probably been a brunch episode on Rick and Morty.
So there's that post-credits, but then there's the second one.
There's the second one where Lex Luthor has made his escape from prison and he's on a yacht and he's become Gene Hackman Lex Luthor.
How'd he do it?
I don't.
Suits.
It's the suit. Yeah, it's the suit. The suit and the neckerchief, probably.
It's strange that he jumped to that combination of clothing from like t-shirt,
Yeah, exactly.
t-shirt and suit jacket and jeans
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever he was wearing.
But then it turns out that him and Deathstroke, and he's like, well, if these guys have a Justice League, we'll just have to form A League of Our Own. And everybody in the cinema went, like the baseball movie. Because that's the only time anyone ever says that.
Maybe
the only reference we have to the phrase "a league of their own."
Yeah. Anyway, it's trivia time. Trivia. Our famous segment of the show.
I love it.
So the prison guard in this, and also one of the cops we see, that's the original Jimmy Olsen from the Chris Reeve Superman movies.
Oh, that is trivia.
Also, if you haven't listened to the extended audio edition of this, all the other trivia from the IMDb, it's in there. We went through it step by step. Piece by piece.
That's right.
And
Yep.
if we've not mentioned something that you wanted us to mention, that's also in the extended version, isn't it?
That's absolutely right.
It's all
yes.
there. We didn't not mention it.
We're all on the same page
That's
here.
right.
With regarding the knowing of trivia about
That's
this
right.
movie.
Though I'm not sure we're entirely on the same page because for me, it's fine. Like this movie on its own.
okay.
If you take it just on its own, it's like one of the okay Resident Evil movies.
Okay.
It's like Hobbs and Shaw. It's one of the dull X-Men movies. I mean, when you look at it in comparison to what came before, it's a fucking nightmare. It makes no sense.
Absolutely,
But
yes.
when you take it on its own, for me,
Yes.
it's just a very, very weird and average movie.
I see what you're saying. I acknowledge what you're saying.
I know I'm wrong. I
No,
know
mean,
that.
You're not wrong. It's just I feel like, again, they had so many opportunities. They had so many chances to get this right.
Yeah.
And it should have been
This
way
is
better.
the Justice League
That's
movie.
right, exactly.
It's
This
crazy.
This is some of the most iconic comic book characters ever put on the page and ever put on the screen, and this is what you're giving us. Is that
Yeah.
a Hobbs and Shaw, an okay Resident Evil movie? That's what we're getting with these guys. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I like Superman. He's having a good time.
See, that's I feel.
But it
like-
doesn't feel on it
Yeah,
though. That's the
no.
problem with it. I'm like, it's good to see you, Superman. Who is this though?
Right?
Anyways, are you looking forward to the Snyder Cut?
Yeah, kind of now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, for me personally.
At least it's even if it's worse, which some people say, well, what if it's worse? How, for one?
Right.
But at least it's a vision, you know?
Exactly. Somebody made some choices.
Yeah.
They weren't forced into some choices making this movie. Yeah. Look, for me, the only way is up.
Yeah.
For the Snyder Cut. Or sideways. But definitely not down.
Wow. Powerful words. Welcome back, everybody, to the final Caravan of Garbage for the year.
Oh my god.
And we thought, why not celebrate this achievement by looking at the tallest comic book movie in history?
So tall, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, that's due to its lack of width, I imagine. It just appears tall.
Oh, okay.
You think that might be it?
Do you think stout would be a more appropriate word?
Yeah. A real chode of a movie.
Now, we've finally come back around to it. We've already looked at Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League 2017.
Henceforth referred to as Justice League, as directed by Joss Whedon.
Correct. So we're finally here. We're doing Zack Snyder's Justice League, which he managed to finish in 2021.
And man, I watched this with an intensity because I'm like, this is the last video we're going to do of the year. And God, this is such an important thing. And then I got about 3 hours in and I'm like, no, it's not. This isn't important at all. This is a silly movie. We're going to talk about it.
But first, you have to leave a like.
Oh, yeah, because this is important stuff.
That's right,
It's
exactly.
Very important stuff.
Yeah. I tell you what, Mason. I mean, the accolades that this movie received. For one, it's sort of
Tall.
It's tall, stout.
It's very stout.
It's Oscar-winning, sort of.
Is it?
Not really. It got an award at the Oscars for the most hashtags for the Flash entering the Speed Force.
Oh, that's right. It's the most memorable cheer moment. I forgot about that, yeah.
Which also was probably rigged by like bots or whatever, but who cares? This was always going to go this way. Let's be realistic. But it is technically the most important moment in cinematic history.
That's true, and they're never going to run that award again, so it's going to remain like that forever.
Exactly. I'll also say this, it's obviously the best live-action Justice League movie.
You mean apart from that made-for-TV one from like the 90s or whatever?
I mean, that's a great movie.
What about the George Miller one, Justice League Mortal, that never got made?
I mean, that's a great movie.
Sure. Are there any others? What else am I forgetting?
I mean, there's the 2017 one.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. That is one of the worst movies ever made, though. It's one of the worst superhero movies ever made.
What I realized in having watched that and then watching this is that everything I like about that movie, and there are things, is just stuff from this. So I would say, look, I like this.
I go back and forth. I'll be honest. Earlier today, I finished watching this, and I'm like, I kind of hate this. But I think that's maybe because I had to watch this in a hurry
Yeah.
so we could talk about it.
Well, it was initially going to be a series, and I
Yeah.
think it would definitely play better as like a 4 to 6 part mini-series. Like the way they broke up Hugh Jackman's Australia into 17 or 18 episodes.
Absolutely.
Is it better? No. Is it longer? Yes.
Absolutely. And I think this one, it has to deal with the same dilemma that Justice League had to deal with,
Yep.
which is this is meant to be their team movie like the Avengers. The problem being is that we'd really only seen the origins of 3 of the team before this.
And the
right?
previous Justice League movie.
Oh yeah, that's also true. But I mean, it's the same.
I know what you
it's
mean,
It's
yeah.
the same issue. So you need that time to build up Aquaman and Cyborg and the Flash, so we care about them. You could just have them come in and be like, "Hey, my name's Vic, and I'm a cyborg, as you can see, and I've got some issues with my dad. Anyway, we've got to deal with this parademon situation."
There's a box. There's 3 boxes. You know what? I can explain it. I've got time. I've got so much time. It's a lingering movie. And by that I mean every scene is as long as it possibly could be.
See, that's the thing as well, and I'll tell you.
And
for,
it's not just the slow-mo.
I'll tell you why, James. I'll tell you for why it's so long, James.
Is it all the slow Nordic songs?
It is all. Well, that's. I mean, that is one element of it, certainly. But the thing about it is, obviously, the previous version, 2017's Justice League, contained elements of the version Zack Snyder wanted to make. But then it got cut to ribbons by Joss Whedon and by the suits over at Warner Brothers. And so the Snyder fans were like, well, if he gets a chance to make a new version of this, we don't want to see that happen. We will absolutely lose our minds if there is not a sequence where Lois Lane sort of searches through a hamper for like an old flannel shirt, and she really contemplates which one to take out, and then she looks at it and she lingers for a bit, and then she takes it, she walks it over to the window, and then she hands it to Clark, and he goes, maybe I'll wear this, and he puts it on or whatever. If we don't see that in its full glory, we will riot. You know what I mean? So what happens with filmmakers generally is they film more footage than they need for the finished product, obviously, because you don't want to be a film director and you finish filming and your cast and crew go their separate ways and you get into the editing bay and you realize you didn't film anybody's faces or whatever, right? Could be awkward, right? So, you need to film a bunch of angles for particular scenes and use the ones that work the best, or you want to have a shot pan around a character for a full minute, knowing you're going to use the 20 seconds where it looks the coolest or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? But then what Zack Snyder did is he put on Vero, the social media platform for Zack Snyder, he put that picture of all the cans of Snyder Cut footage, and I think he said 214 minutes, 3.5 hours. And then I think the Snyder fans were like, if we see anything less than 3.5 hours, we will explode. You know what I mean? If we don't see the Amazons say we have to contact the outside world, we're going to need to use the Arrow of Artemis. So let's go to the room where we have the Arrow of Artemis and we'll explain how it works, and then we'll open the box containing the Arrow of Artemis, and then we'll take it to like the launching platform for the Arrow of Artemis, and then we'll light it on fire, and then we'll shoot it over to Man's World, and then Wonder Woman will see it on the telly.
She goes, that's the Arrow of Artemis.
Then we will riot. If we don't see that entire thing.
I think by doing that as well, this is more kind of like a mood or an experience.
You could say that, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
But what I'm saying is there's so many...
You've got to get in a zone for this.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there's so many elements to this where, like, realistically, people are saying, well, this is Zack Snyder's original vision for this.
No.
But it cannot possibly be, because when he was working for Warner Brothers to make it as a theatrical release, obviously he would have cut down that 3.5 hours to a manageable length, because he was doing the bidding of Warner Brothers.
This is 4 hours, by the way.
It is 4 hours. He added more. They did some reshoots. He would have cut that down to 2.5 hours,
Yes.
2 hours, something like that. And he would have understandably cut out a lot of stuff. Like there's a moment right at the start where Bruce Wayne is walking across some like snowy outcroppings. You wouldn't use the entire thing. You know what I mean?
It's not Lord of the Rings.
It's not Lord of the Rings.
Sometimes it is, though.
So what I'm saying is there's some good stuff in this, but there's some pacing issues.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
Goes a bit slow in my opinion.
So what they had to do,
Yes.
they shot extra footage. There's the nightmare sequence. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that in a bit, and other bits and pieces. And they had to finish over 2,000 special effects shots. They also reused shots of Henry Cavill from Man of Steel and Batman v Superman for various sequences. There's a bit where, you see him turn bad and Darkseid puts his hand on him. That's from Man of Steel. And obviously, there's things that they had to go back and completely fix, like Steppenwolf, which has a complete redesign, which I like. I like the way the suit is like actively protecting him. You see where
Yeah.
it snaps off all the arrows
That's
at one
pretty
point.
cool. Best part of that really long scene.
It really is.
So long. Where were they going? Where are the Amazons going? They're like, we're going to protect this mother box. Let's drag it behind a horse. Then what? You get to the end of the island. Where you putting it then?
Arrow of Artemis?
tie it to the Hour of Artemis, make
yeah,
it
yeah.
Wonder Woman's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a better design. The Steppenwolf design is way better, and he's got those beautiful little doe eyes
Oh, I
when
love
he's
that.
sad. When he's sad?
I love the bit when his helmet rolls back and that's his head.
Yeah,
It's
those
like,
are his-
wow, that's all you, is it?
Those his big ears. Those his big
Interesting.
old ears. My favorite Steppenwolf part, and speaking of, there's too many scenes in this movie.
Sure.
It's where there's two scenes where he gets on that like molten rock face phone.
Oh, yeah.
And he calls Desaad, and both times he's like, I've found a mother box.
Did you find all of them?
No, there's more.
We're displeased.
Well, if you could find another one.
you have to get us 50,000 worlds. It's too many.
Yeah.
Unachievable, in my opinion.
Oh, yes.
IMO. There is some weird kind of, what are you even doing in this situation with the Amazons and the Atlanteans? I mean, you barely see the Atlanteans. It seems like there's eight of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
This is
yeah.
set before Aquaman.
Yeah. Not a drumming octopus to be seen.
No, there is an octopus and it's guarding a box sort of at one point. But there is that moment where the Amazons, there's like 200 of them guarding the box before it comes to life. And I guess there aren't a lot of jobs. So
Sure.
a lot of people, they work in the big stone room.
That's the plumber Simon as well. Gonna have to go out hunting today. I'll be in the big stone room when nothing happens ever.
Well, no, and then he turned up, and then they're like, oh, what are we going to do? Let's sink it into the ocean. He teleported in from space. He's probably going to be able to get out of this, don't you think?
Sure.
I think putting all the Victor Stone stuff back in this is great. I
Yes.
can see why Ray Fisher was upset,
Yeah.
because he's not used well at all in the other version.
He got what is called a character arc.
And he said the line, you should probably move,
Oh my
which was
God,
in
yes,
the original
please.
trailer.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
You should probably move.
Yeah! I think getting to see more of Apocalypse, Desaad, Granny Goodness, Darkseid, all of that's great. I think the design of anything grey and bubbly is really good, but whenever it goes outside, it's like, this isn't a real outdoor place.
Themyscira.
Yes.
I mean, if you went to Norway or whatever,
yeah.
go to a slightly different area of Norway where it's a bit greener. And
Sure.
Be like, that's the Amazon homeland. It could be.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like.
No, I think a lot of the tweaks make a big difference. The Steppenwolf invasion is changed to a Darkseid invasion. There's a moment where Mira, whatever, pulls water out of Steppenwolf, and then he just starts bleeding from his face.
Yeah.
That's great.
All I've got left is salt.
I think adding the black suit for Superman is really good. I like
think
that
it's
look.
stupid.
Look, okay.
I think it is. I didn't write this as a note, but if the shoe fits, I was going to say it feels like a dork's idea of what cool is. Or a black suit.
Well, people say there's an actual reason for it because
because it's solar charging or whatever.
Yes.
But that works in the comic books because when they brought him back to life, he wasn't really dead, but they brought him back to whatever.
Yeah.
He didn't have any powers. He was just a regular man. And
Yeah.
so he needs the suit to solar charge. But when he comes back in both versions of this, he's as powerful as Superman is. Because he's Superman.
Look, I don't disagree, and I think there is a real missed opportunity in this film series to do literally anything with the death of Superman. He's barely Superman. He dies. It's probably a couple of months until he's back again. We know that because Lois Lane is probably pregnant, and she's not showing, or she's hiding it very well. I'm not saying necessarily you do the comic book story where, you know, you do the reign of Superman and you introduce like Superboy and John Henry Irons and whoever else. I would love to see something like that. Don't get me wrong, but then he's just back and it's business as usual, you know?
Yeah.
I think there is a real missed opportunity to explore a world without Superman who actually believably likes this guy.
Yeah, and to have the world really know who he is and then lose him and then have him come back. Two notes. One, there's a moment where the Flash is like, he was my hero. And I'm like, not your dad? Not your dad who defended your mum from that weird time-traveling murderer or whatever it was?
Not your dumb dad.
You stupid dad. And the second thought is, my problem with the black suit is it's not that the solar charging thing or whatever, it's that at the final battle, there's no contrast between him and Batman. Like, it's not visually interesting.
okay, right.
I think what Snyder should have done is he should have pretended like he was going to do the black suit, and then at the end, standard suit with the trunks. Give him the big red trunks.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, I need extra red trunk power
Yeah, but
in
is
my
that,
groin
but
region.
Is that cool?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
cool.
It's not as cool though, is it?
No,
as a black
you're right.
suit.
It's not as cool as a black suit.
It's a good look, man. Okay, speaking of the Flash, the super speed stuff and the time travel stuff is way better. There's a moment where he's moving like a Flash, catching some rubble, and I think that's a really interesting representation. And the moment where he does run through time and all the damage reverses and you see Victor Stone's face like reform. And then you go from that to the Flash where they're in a weird nightmare bubble world where nobody looks like anybody, really.
The very disrespectful,
Yeah.
the giant disrespectful wheel of historical sadness. And I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. You're absolutely right. One thing that I like way more, I think the finale is way better in this than in the previous version. What's interesting about the 2017 version, I don't understand why this is, because when Joss Whedon made Avengers, he seemed to understand that everybody on the team needed their time to shine.
Yeah.
Because every character is somebody's favorite character, and even if your character's only ability is the ability to shoot arrows real good, you need to give him a moment where he does something really cool and interesting.
Where he uses his 6 arrows.
Exactly, he uses all them 6 arrows, right? But in his version of Justice League, everybody's just sort of like losing a ton of ground against Steppenwolf. They don't know what the hell they're doing until Superman shows up. But in this, I could believe that any of them, like, they really lay into him at the end there.
Oh,
and
my favorite moment.
And
oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
they're conceivably, they could take him. Right? It's handy that Superman showed up.
Yeah.
But he's not the linchpin. They're not just a bunch of losers being like, I don't know what, I don't think we can save the world unless we bring a man back from the dead.
Yeah.
A thing that's never happened before, but I guess we could do it.
Well, it happened one time.
Oh.
It happened one time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's what we're here to talk about, folks. We're evangelical now. We tried being part of the manosphere, didn't work. So we're evangelicals now.
Yeah, but look, I think also Superman definitely turns the tide, which, you know, validates the idea that you would risk bringing him back from the dead. And just that Steppenwolf death is just tremendous. What a team bonding moment.
Yeah.
You know, he gets flung into the portal and then beheaded.
Yeah. In front of all his mates and his dad or whatever, or his uncle, I don't know.
Just tremendous.
Yeah.
And that stare down of just like, okay.
What now, bitches?
You know who they could have used?
Who's that?
Martian Manhunter.
Disagree.
Well, they didn't need him, did they?
No.
I like how he shows up at the end and he's like, I would like to help what you're doing. You missed a pretty big thing though, didn't you?
It's a real Leonard Nimoy in that episode of The Simpsons, you know, the monorail episode. He says,
my work here is done.
My work here is done. You didn't do anything. My favorite part...
He's also not in the future.
That's true.
I mean, I guess he could technically be anybody.
He could.
I think he's Mera, because he's obviously not nailing that accent.
No, you blooming bastard. It's fascinating. The moment where he shows up as Martha Kent at Lois Lane's door, and they have a beautiful heart-to-heart about missing Clark and what that means to themselves
weird.
and the world. It is weird. And then Martha Kent leaves and just turns into Martian Manhunter and then turns into General Eiling, who didn't help during Man of Steel either, quite frankly. And then he leaves. What I like about that, though, is that it's going to make the next family get-together, like, really awkward.
Yeah.
Because Lois Lane's going to be like, Martha, I just wanted to say thanks so much for coming to visit that time. I was really in a bad place, and I don't know what I was going to do. I was really missing Clark. And she's going to be like, what are you talking about? Well, I didn't...
The bank was taking my house.
Yeah, I had my own stuff going on, Lois.
And my son died.
Yeah.
I guess we got to also talk about the Nightmare World, the revisiting of. And I tell you what, this really confirmed to me that I do not like Jared Leto's Joker.
No.
Just terrible.
Is it you don't like Jared Leto's
Yes.
Joker or Jared Leto?
Yes.
Okay, great. Two big yeses.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Let's put it on the board.
It feels like, and I don't know whether this is true, that he did his own dialogue.
Who's gonna give you a reach around?
I don't know whether that's true, but it's just all kind of like...
Yeah. And then Batman drops a big F-bomb and...
I will fucking kill you.
Ooh, you know he's serious.
Oh, I'd kill you.
I'm gonna
just kill him now.
I'm gonna give you this card, and when the card's gone, then the truce is gone. Why? Because he's got it in the gun in Batman v Superman.
Right.
So he's got to have the card, right?
Yeah, I guess that's
You need
true,
to
yeah.
explain the card. It's dumb, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And look, I understand the sequence. I understand why they did it, because this was going to be a sequel at some point, which we will talk about.
And a post-apocalyptic future is interesting. Like, that's inherently quite a good, you know.
Yeah, but also
I love seeing that.
That scene looks like it's shot in a cupboard, because it was.
Yeah, sure.
And none of
or
the-
a driveway.
Or a driveway.
Might have been in Zack Snyder's
Yeah.
driveway.
But it does feel like that they all shot that on different days.
Yeah, a lot
in
of-
different years also.
A lot of this movie does look a lot like a whiskey ad, or maybe like an ad for a mobile game.
Yeah. I mean, some of it looks tremendous.
Some of it looks amazing.
Yeah, and some of it is real ugly.
Do we have time for some miscellaneous notes?
You know it.
Okay, let's have a look here. There's a moment where all the engineers of Wayne Enterprises couldn't make that big bat whale plane fly. But Bruce is going to do it. And he says, I need more range and I need more cargo. And I'm like, do you? I mean, realistically, you need like room for like 6 guys in a Batmobile. I think a regular plane could fit 6 guys in a Batmobile. There's too much weight. We can't take off. Well, I could just get out and fly because I can fly. Oh, I can also fly. Oh, I can fly as well, I think. Maybe? I'm Wonder Woman. Can I fly? I don't know. I could just get out and I could run across the ocean in a second. I guess I'll just fly this myself then. Yeah, maybe you should. Just get a regular plane, idiot.
Also, maybe it doesn't fly because obviously it wouldn't. Just look at it. It's a fucking brick.
Right.
You've built a giant brick.
You built a big paperweight. What were you thinking? Here's a note. Isn't it fascinating that J.K. Simmons has flawlessly embodied not one but 2 iconic comic book characters? You got J. Jonah Jameson, nailed it, perfect casting.
Yep.
I think he's perfect for Commissioner Gordon as well.
I don't like the hair. It's too floppy. Brush it back.
You think so?
Yeah, you look like a hippie.
Wow, no, he does kind of actually. Yeah.
But no, he's terrific.
I like there's a moment where all the good guys have to get over a broken walkway and they all have a little signature jump.
They do, don't
That
they?
bit? One of them has a big jump
Yeah.
and one uses his little grappling hook and one is like, I'll super speed over.
That feels like a Lego puzzle.
It does,
In a
doesn't it?
Lego
Yeah.
video game.
Yeah. Anyway, generally speaking, I had a pretty good time.
Yeah, me too. But it's not over yet, Mason, because it's time for Trivia Snyder, Justice Trivia.
I love that.
The trivia segment of the show. While it's not mentioned in this movie, Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio switched the familiar roles of Steppenwolf and Darkseid. So normally Steppenwolf is Darkseid's uncle, but in this I think he's supposed to be his nephew.
Okay. So it's a reverse LMFAO situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Sure.
John Stewart was going to be played by Wayne T. Carr, but Warner Brothers forced Snyder to remove him because they had plans for this character later. So that moment when Martian Manhunter shows up, that was going to be just anybody.
When you say Jon Stewart, you mean the political comedian Jon Stewart?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, right.
And he's like, there's too many capitalism in this movie. And there is.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember the bit with the money?
Oh my God, he made that money so
The
big.
bull was fighting the bear.
He covers for it because he's helping that woman who doesn't have a lot of money and so forth. The bank ATM is like, you've won a big prize or whatever. Don't do that. She'll go into the bank and be like,
I won this big prize.
and they'll be like, no, you didn't. Give us the money back. This was an error. Give us the money back. And you're going to
yeah.
jail.
Apparently Snyder originally wanted Ryan Reynolds to return as a Green Lantern in that
Okay.
scene, because of course he was Hal Jordan in Green Lantern 2011, a movie we've also looked at.
Mm.
But he didn't end up contacting him. So that's what he said. And the thing about Ryan Reynolds is you can't contact him anyway. He's nowhere on social media.
That's so
He's
true,
a real
isn't it?
Daniel Day-Lewis, isn't he?
Yeah, he just does a project and he disappears. You know what I mean?
And Zack Snyder also stated that his ideal casting for Selena Kyle / Catwoman is Carla Gugino.
Oh, she's from Watchmen.
Yeah.
And other things.
She would be a terrific Catwoman.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, but she's not. This is over.
Yeah.
Or is it? We'll
It
talk
is.
about it.
It is.
Mason.
Okay.
Now, the box office for this.
Go on.
It had like a very limited cinematic release.
I see.
So, no, it didn't really make
watched
any
it on
money.
the telly.
Yeah, exactly. On a budget of $70 million, that's just for this version. That's in addition to the $300 million they already spent on this movie and the previous movie. I don't think it performed well enough on HBO Max because that was the idea. It was COVID. They were looking for things to put on their service. And they said, what do we have? We have 3.5 hours of Justice League footage, maybe. But I feel like if it got the subscribers they were looking for and the watch time and all of that, then this would be the universe we would still be.
I mean, potentially.
Existing in,
but
yeah.
I also kind of feel like there is no amount of watch time that would have been enough. You know what I mean? It's impossible to know with these
I think there
streaming
would be
services.
subscribers. I think there
Okay.
would be an amount of subscribers.
Oh, mate, yeah, that's probably true. But I
Yeah.
mean, it wouldn't have reached Red Notice numbers.
No, how could it? So, there's been talk of a sequel. There's been a fan campaign to get that happening like there was to get this happening. So that worked. So, thought why not roll that over into a new movie and explore the nightmare future and all of that they were clearly setting up. But at this point, Zack Snyder's moved on. He's obviously doing Rebel Moon for Netflix, and he did Army of the Dead, and he's up to various other projects. I wouldn't say never
Yeah.
in terms of this.
But I would say let the man live.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, he said also that he's kind of bored with this genre at this point. He said kind of everything that he wanted to say. He dedicated this movie to his daughter who he lost, which was one of the reasons why he came off the project. It wasn't the only reason. Warner Brothers weren't happy with him either. But yeah, if Clooney can come back, there's a very good chance in the future, and it could be 20 years, that this is all revisited in
That's
some
true.
way or another.
They could bring Henry Cavill in and he'd be like, I didn't remember fighting a giant spider for this. I just sat in a waiting room for 10 minutes and then they said I could go. Now I'm fighting a spider on screen.
But I think also the important thing to remember is if you want a sequel to this,
Make it yourself.
well, yes, make it yourself. But also there are sequels. There's Aquaman, which is set after this, Shazam, The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, Black Adam, Shazam 2, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman 2. All of these movies canonically come after this movie, and they all might be in the same continuity, probably, maybe.
Probably,
Who's
maybe.
to say?
Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
not up to me to say.
No.
Yeah.
I'll say it. They are.
Terrific.
You're welcome, everyone.
My goodness. What a year for Caravan of Garbage it's been.
I agree. We looked at some movies.
Yep.
Thought about them.
We thought about them, we talked about them.
Yeah, that's right.
Ben and Lawrence made videos for them.
That's right.
We sent them the audio and said, do this, fix this.
Fix all this. So everyone say thank you to them for fixing it for a year.
They did an amazing
Another
job.
year.
Yeah, my goodness. And of course, if you do have any suggestions for Caravan of Garbage for next year, we'll be back in early February. Please leave them below. But we are continuing things at bigsandwich.co, which is like our private Patreon, where we do movie commentaries. We've done a commentary for this movie.
Oh my God, we really did. Did we break it into two? I think we might have.
Yes, but then I think Collings, who edits all those, put them together also in one big file, if you are interested.
good for him.
Yeah. We do video game Let's Plays. We looked at the Aquaman 2003 video game.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
And it's in the same universe as this. So it's required watching.
We're looking at a really cool Justice League comic as well by Grant Morrison.
Ooh, I love that Grant Morrison.
Also, our podcast, The Weekly Planet, where we talk movies and comics and TV shows, that comes out there early on Sunday as opposed to Monday. Got us on YouTube channel, Spotify, all of that. But also, thank you so much to everybody who continues to watch these, or if you're new, or if you're leaving.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, man.
In the ass. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. You know what I mean?
That's right. But no, we genuinely do appreciate it because what an opportunity to have this as a job.
That's so true.
It's lunacy, but I appreciate it so much. Don't make me teach again. I don't want to.
In a way, we're teaching every week here.
That's true.
You know, about movies.
Yeah.
All that knowledge about movies we have.
And Jesus.
Yeah, I forgot to do that. We'll rebrand next year.
Yeah,
we'll
that's
rebrand
right.
next year.
Yeah. All right, thanks everyone.
And grab that gem, you guys. We'll see you real soon.
Goodbye.